it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him
Not good. Believe me, not good.
What's up, everybody? A pleasant good evening to you all. Welcome, dissidents, to the DueDissidence podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, here once again, of course, with Russell Dobular.
Hello.
And we thank you all for being here. Got a great crowd in here, nice and early. That's what we like to see. So please hit that like button to help get an even bigger crowd in here. And please hit that subscribe button if you are not subscribed already. Thank you guys very much. A crowd of 219 strong here to start the evening. That's a pretty nice crowd. We heard Sabby Sabs just got done. So for those of you doing a dissident double feature, we welcome you to the second half of the evening's proceedings. We have a very full show for you tonight. We have some business to take care of first. First, Russell had a very pleasant meeting with our friend and supporter, Ellen Jimerson. They came to New York City and got some bagels. Russell, where'd you take them?
All right. These days, even though they're kind of new kids on the block, the oldest bagel shop in Manhattan is Kosar's down on the Lower East Side. Honestly, Zucker's is better. Zucker's is better. They're doing this old school hand-rolled, kettle-boiled bagels. So we took these Southern ladies, that's Ellen and her sister, took them to have some actual bagels. So they had never had in their lives, and they loved them.
Well, that's good.
As far as I'm told that. Anyway, that's what Ellen said.
Zucker's is pretty good. Zucker's is on a food tour that I used to manage that Russell still guides from time to time. Zucker's does a good bagel. Maybe when you're down south, she can return the favor, maybe treat you to a nice biscuit, show you where the best Alabama biscuits are.
You know what you can't get up here? Biscuits and gravy, man.
Yeah.
You cannot get that made properly up here.
Biscuits and gravy. Biscuits and gravy.
If she can hook me up with that, I'll appreciate it.
Yeah, no, a good biscuit and gravy is quite good. It's quite good. My father-in-law took us out to the Cracker Barrel a few weeks ago. I just got it comes with biscuits and gravy on the side, but it's nothing. It's not good. That's just the generic, mass-produced stuff. There's nothing like a good.
It's very
Southern
hard
biscuit.
to find good. And I live in Harlem, and I can't find good biscuits and gravy.
Yeah, it is tough. It is tough. That's true. What is? This is a stupid question. But this shows how long I've been out of New York City. Is Sylvia's still there? Still open?
Sylvia's will always be there, but it's not as good as it was since Sylvia died.
As it was. That's right.
Like now just tourists go there, and Al Sharpton when there's a competitive primary.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's about it.
Exactly. Yeah, no, Sylvia's is great stuff, but I hope Ellen had a good time in New York, and so that was a great time. And I do want to announce something, actually. Tomorrow night, that's Monday, May 1st, May Day, a very big day in the labor history here. We are going to be on the Revolutionary Blackout Network tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be on with Nick and CJ as well as Kit Cabello from Hard Lens Media. We're doing a sort of roundtable talk that they have titled the Post-Duopoly left. It's going to be a roundtable sort of discussion forum, and we hope to make it a somewhat regular thing, which would be sort of, we would argue, the real left answer to the leftist mafia. So I build that on Twitter as, if you love the leftist mafia, you'll really hate this show.
You're going to hate this show.
You're really going to hate this. But we will be on tomorrow night on RBN at 8 p.m. Eastern with Kit from Hardlands. All great folks. We're very excited to talk to them all again. And so please tune into that. If you can, mark your calendar down tomorrow night, 8 p.m. That should be quite a bit of fun. And it's something that, oddly enough, Russell was talking about, the need to sort of pull everybody together.
Exactly. It's kind of weird. Right. That came up like right after that.
Yeah, came up kind of just as we were getting a sense of saying, hey, maybe we should have a little huddle to see what exactly we want to do with this energy of ours. So I think that'll be good.
Yeah, that's a very interesting collection of personalities to talk about that.
Yeah, indeed. All right, we're going to start out with some headlines. We got a couple of super chats right off the bat, though, that we're going to just take care of here. Dr. Nick Riviera, thank you for the $2 starting the show off right. Yes, you are, my friend. Thank you so much. Then we have an interesting super chat.
$2 cover charge only, folks.
Oh, yeah, got to kill that loop. I forgot. That's the one thing I forgot to do.
I thought I looked at it. I thought it was killed.
There we go. I got it now. Now you're good.
I keep looking at the wrong one.
Oh, there you go. All right. The other interesting super chat here is Franklin. I like this question. I'll get right to the point. Should the left vote for Trump? Well, good question. Franklin.
Well, you're a loser if you don't, Franklin.
Well, you're a loser if you don't. Does that make it easy for you, Franklin? Does that make it easier? It's funny because when you see an event like the White House Correspondents' Dinner last night, which we are going to cover briefly, we're not going to cover it a lot. But when you see an event like that, we've heard so many people on the left just so disgusted by what they saw, Biden making these odes to press freedom, and the press actually applauded. I won't step on the segment, but the press actually applauded when he said, I announced recently I'm going to run again. They actually gave him a round of applause, which is outrageous. And a lot of people on the left say, how could you do a press event without talking about Ukraine and Nord Stream? And how can you talk about press freedom without talking about Julian Assange and all this stuff? Well, don't forget, when Trump was president, he didn't go to these things. He boycotted these things because they're bullshit, and they are bullshit. And so, at a certain point, it's like, hey, listen, you do have an option on the table if you really want to stick your thumb in the eye of these people. He is running. That's all I can say. I mean, I could not endorse Donald Trump. His politics are not mine, obviously. But look, I mean, at a certain point, if you're gonna be this is why we don't hand wring and pearl clutch about Trump all the time. This is why I don't react in horror to everything that Trump says, because I'm sorry, if you are disgusted by that White House Correspondents' Dinner and everything it has become, then you can't you cannot on the other hand react in such horror to Trump as this violation of normalcy and of manners and of goodness, because only a guy like that would boycott that event, and in doing so kind of expose it for not just the farce that it is, but the sort of anti-democratic exercise that it is. You should not have a media dressed up in suits and ties and bow ties and arrive in limos with fancy dresses on their wives and their girlfriends.
With celebrities and CEOs.
Right. Go there to yuck it up with the people in power. That's not a healthy democratic exercise, and Trump did not partake in it. Now, you could say he didn't partake in it for the wrong reasons. Okay, fine. You know what? You want to be that picky about it? That's your choice. But I think I made my point there. So thank you for the question.
I think, I've been of the opinion, and as we'll demonstrate later, it's not because I'm a DeSantis stan, and I think I can speak for Keaton there too. I'm just of the opinion that he's going to end up beating Trump in those primaries and becoming the president. I could be wrong, and people can have a lot of fun playing clips of me saying that. Giving you plenty of material to work with if it turns out that way. But yeah, given a choice between Biden and Trump, if you decide to vote for one or the other at all, personally, I'm not going to, if those are my choices. But given a choice between the two, yeah, I mean, I think you could definitely make a case if you, for example, maybe like to not have World War III. I think you could
Right.
definitely make a case for deciding to vote for Trump. And this bleeds into the segment we're going to do later. But at the risk of cutting into Chris Hedges' action, I'm going to make a Rome comparison here. The Romans described themselves as a republic, literally for centuries after they had become an empire. The idea that they were, upholding these institutions of republican government, they would still make speeches like that. I mean, the emperor would talk like that long after the republic had been shattered by Julius Caesar. So that's really what you see here when they're talking about a free press. I mean, it's the Roman Empire talking about the Roman Republic as if that still exists.
Right, absolutely. All right, so let's pick things up somewhat where we left off last week. Last week, we did a lot of Democratic quote-unquote primary coverage. We are not going to do a lot of Democratic. In fact, we have none of that on the docket for this evening. That's part of why we covered it so thoroughly last week. But, of course, we mentioned how Bernie Sanders endorsed Joe Biden last week. It seems now all of the squad is on board, including Ilhan Omar. She was on the Alex Wagner show on MSNBC.
This one's terrifying. This one's almost scarier than the AOC ones, because this is completely invasion of the body snatchers. This really feels like somebody put a plant in her room and replaced her with a pod person.
Yeah, so
I don't even recognize her.
Yeah, she was asked by Alex Wagner about the ongoing negotiations over the debt ceiling. Wagner said, of course, Biden is going to be leading the way in those negotiations, and he announced he's running. How do the progressives feel about that? Here's Ilhan Omar on the potential reelection of Joe Biden.
Negotiations. He is also, as we know, running for president again. Are progressives excited about that?
I mean, the reality is, in the last 2 years under
it just doesn't even seem like the same person.
In the House and in the Senate, we've been able to do incredible things by passing bills like the CHIPS Act or the Infrastructure Bill or the Inflation Reduction Act. The president was in my district celebrating some of that work earlier this month. He has been a real partner in listening to us when we've said we need movement in regards to addressing the...
I love that. He's been a partner in listening to us about needing movement on climate change. He did approve the single biggest drilling project in the history of federal lands, but he's been a real partner in listening to us about why we need action on this issue. Pretty high praise there.
When I call him, he takes my calls. It's not always clear that he knows who I am. He has called me mom on more than one occasion and asked me to take the dog out, but he does listen.
He does listen. He listens. He's been a great partner in listening.
The climate crisis. We need movement in addressing student debt cancellation. And I think it is really important for us to support him for re-election. We are at this moment dealing with fascism. In this moment.
Okay, this is really the most outrageous part right here.
Are at this moment dealing with fascism. In this moment, we are dealing with people who don't actually believe democracy is good. We are dealing with people who are proposing the kind of economically devastating and dangerous bill that we just talked about. I don't think we have the opportunity to have the kind of conversations that people want to have. This is a very dangerous moment for our country, and the president that's leading us has done a great job, and we need to coalesce behind him.
It sounds like enthusiasm to me. Minnesota
Democrats. Yeah. And you see the big smile you get from MSNBC when you talk like that, right?
Yeah. Oh, they love her now. They love her because this is exactly what they need, a black Muslim woman who toes the party line. Before, she was a repudiation of everything they claim to be. Here's this black Muslim woman not towing the party line. Oh my God, but those people love us, right? They all love us. She was a repudiation of everything they claim to be. And look at what she is now. I mean, you can just see the consultants got a hold of her. All right, Ilhan, I like what you're doing, but can you do it as if you've had a prefrontal lobotomy? Perfect.
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect.
Well, look, she says there, you have to understand we're at a very dangerous moment. We have fascists in our midst. And so because we have a threat of fascism and people who don't like democracy, we can't have the conversations that we want to have right now. And that is such a telling bit, because what did progressives use to try and sheepdog other progressives into voting Biden in 2020? They said, yeah, we know it sucks that we can't get a progressive on the ballot, but unfortunately, we just don't have the space for this conversation now because Donald Trump's in the White House. We have to get rid of him. And in getting rid of him, we will create the space for a conversation. Well, guess what? We did that in 2020.
Yes, it's always the same shit.
It's always the same.
Always
so you
the same.
beat the fascists in 2020. Then they didn't beat the fascists in 2022, but they kind of kept them more or less at bay. They kept the Senate, right? And now 2024, okay, we beat the fascists twice, more or less. Now, can we get to have this conversation now? No. It's still really scary. The fascists are still here. Don't you understand? The fascists will always be right around the corner because that's how they keep you in line.
Right.
That's how they get.
It's a
the
three-card
fascist threat is always 5 feet away, and we have to push it away by voting blue. We can't have these conversations right now. That's what we used to hear from the centrists. We didn't used to hear that from Ilhan Omar. Now she's saying the exact same thing that they used to say.
They broke her. Her. I haven't seen her transformation. So when you told me we were going to do this, and I did the research, and I went and looked at the clip, I was honestly shocked and horrified. I couldn't believe I was watching the same person. Her whole persona, her whole demeanor, her whole facial expression, like clearly she's been coached. Like that's so unnatural. You would need somebody to sit down and coach you to behave that way. Ilhan, we have to soften up your image, right? I love what you're saying. I love your principles. I love what you stand for. But if you want to get things done in Congress, you're gonna have to do some work, put on a little makeup, the brother marriage thing. I don't know what's going on there, but we have to overcome that and make people forget that. But this is the great thing with these people. If you just say the right words, all that goes away. Right. Exactly. You can always talk your way out of trouble with this crowd because as long as you're giving them what they want to hear, they'll make excuses for anybody. They make excuses for Joe Biden, right? Doesn't matter. Right.
Doesn't matter.
And you remember the shit libs because even they had a hard time. It wasn't like with Hillary where you had Hillary stance. There were never any Biden stance. And the way they justified it, it was the funniest thing. These shit libs who never held any Democrat accountable in their lives were talking about how they were going to hold Biden's feet to the fire. So here we are. And I would argue with them. I would say, you never did that before. You're going to do that now? Who the fuck are you kidding? As soon as he's in office, you're going back to brunch. And that's exactly what they did.
Absolutely. So some of us went to brunch. We saw another headline here. This is an interesting headline. This is a little different, little change of pace here for everybody. But this was an interesting story here on NBC. I left the United States for Europe and now spend only $1,906 a month while raising 3 kids. Here's why I'm never moving back. So this was a woman named Allison Opalco Berry. She moved to Germany. She was over there for a while, and then she met a man. They had a long distance relationship, and then she thought it best to relocate to Germany with her one child and marry him. And now they have 2 other kids. And she decided just to stay there because she has a PhD. She was earning $65,000 a year here. And she says, here, I could barely afford the American dream. I earned my bachelor's, master's, and PhD in communications in 5 years. As a student, I worked full-time as an instructor, but never made more than $1,500 a month. When I was 24, I got a job as an assistant professor of business communications and management, making $65,000 a year, and people pointed to me as an example of the American dream. But I was in debt and living paycheck to paycheck. I knew things needed to change. So then her life took a turn. Now there, hey, look, she's even got the garb down there. Good for her. She looks
like she just made a good strudel.
Yeah, exactly.
Edelweiss. Edelweiss.
And so she breaks down how much we spend in Germany. As high-earning taxpayers, my husband, who is an engineer, and I happily contribute about 35% of our income to the German social system. With Germany's statutory health insurance, which, by the way, Germany has the oldest universal healthcare system of any developed country in the world, dating back to the 1870s. Yep, back to the Otto von Bismarck days. And that universal healthcare system has lasted since then. I say even the Nazis didn't take away people's health care. That's how much people value their universal healthcare systems in Europe. Even Hitler.
What does that make people who will not give you health care? I guess they're worse than Nazis.
Worse than Nazis. Even the Nazis left the health care more or less the same. So here's the budget. 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment, rent including utilities, $2,000. It's very, very low rent for 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Full-time daycare for 2 kids, $98.75 for full-time daycare for 2 kids. We're trying to find a daycare for our kids now.
Monthly.
Yeah, a month. That's astounding. I mean, that's the big, as a twin dad myself, who now we just moved, we're trying to find the kids a daycare now. I mean, that's astounding. Groceries, $400 a month. Way less than what you get here. Yeah, you need to
for a family
few loaves
that
of bread
size,
here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's nothing. $80.
I spend more than that. I'm a single guy.
Yeah, $100 a week for a family of 5. Public transportation, $107 for a family of 5. Cell phone plan, $37. Internet, $32. Total, $27.28. After factoring the $822 we received to cover childcare costs, so even as relatively well-off people in Germany, they still get subsidized childcare. We spend about $1,906 a month, or just $62 a day. And so she's not coming back. And so she's not coming back. She's staying over there. I hope I didn't depress our Americans in the audience this evening, but we did that partly for our overseas viewers, because there are so many of them.
We have a lot. We're very big in Ireland, apparently. Mm-hmm. We have somebody who's Swiss who's very curious about me trying that Javalia coffee. Or is it Sweden? Is it Sweden or Switzerland? Where's that Javalia?
Javalia is from Switzerland, I believe.
Switzerland, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's from there. Yeah, this is a demonstration of, and I think anyone in our audience knows this, because that was part of our whole Bernie Sanders campaign argument, right? That we're not asking for anything crazy. We're asking for what other people in the Western world have. We're just a freak show. Now, I'm sure this will come up tomorrow in our roundtable, because we're very often talking right now because everything's kind of blown apart. So everything is on the table, right? Like, what are we aiming for? What are we fighting for? I mean, to me, that hasn't changed. It's that. Now, I know we have our tanky friends in our audience. This is a broader conversation. Maybe we'll do a broader segment about this. Although, like I said, I'm sure this will come up in the roundtable tomorrow. You cannot have communism without empowering the state to a level that I am personally not comfortable with. I am not any more comfortable with a state grown that large than I'm comfortable with a private sector grown as powerful as what we have. Capitalism with social controls. And I was talking to Tusker the other day, and she was saying, yeah, I mean, that works, but the problem is, to have the resources to have something like that, you have to exploit other nations. Now, maybe that's true, maybe it isn't. I mean, we're doing that here, and we're still not getting any health care. So I don't know if the one necessarily goes with the other. I think it's a question of how you distribute resources, but that's a conversation that we can have. I don't think that suggests that we should turn overall power to the state and eliminate the private sector, or weaken it to the point that it doesn't act as a counterbalance to the state. That's just not where I am. People of good conscience and good faith can argue the other side. And like I said, I'm sure that'll come up on the panel tomorrow. But this, to me, you look at that, it's a good example of, hey, man, Germany is a very successful economy. Nobody would say that they don't have free enterprise in Germany. But, you have a permanent child tax credit. We had a permanent child tax credit for a few minutes in the United States during COVID. Did the hammers and sickles all of a sudden come out because of it? Did the whole country turn into the USSR because of it? And that is the myth that they always present to you to try to knock down all of these programs. It's going all the way back to Reagan. If you've ever heard Reagan back when he was doing those GE propaganda pieces, where he did that whole album about how, first it starts with medical care, and then pretty soon people are coming and knocking on your door and getting into your affairs, right? So, I mean, this is what they've always done. But if you look at these countries, I mean, it's not, obviously. As you say, Germany's had this since the 19th century without, crumbling into some kind of totalitarian communist nightmare. For me, the dream, the ideal was always that America would just be like the rest of the Western world. For me, I'm not any further than that. I know a lot of people in our audience are, and God bless you, but you'd have to convince me that that's a good idea. And so far, I have not heard any convincing arguments that that is not enough.
Well, to me, you don't really have much control over where a thing lands. Like, to me, I think the system needs a shake-up in the way that, like, you ever go to the grocery store and you have the scale hanging from the ceiling and you throw a bag of apples on it and the thing just kind of goes crazy for a second, it gets lighter, heavier, right?
Yeah.
Once that's what we need. We need those dials to just go boom.
Sure.
Now, the thing is, you don't really know where or how it's going to land and where it's going to end up, right? So, like, I don't really bother thinking too much about that. I never called myself a doctrinaire or anything. Even when I was a kid, when I first registered to vote, I was more or less a good Democrat. But I didn't even register with a party because I just never really felt the need to identify in that way. And I kind of feel the same thing now. Like, right now, there needs to be a massive, and I would argue militant struggle between labor and capital, because right now the problem is that concentrated capital has its foot on the neck, not of 99% of us. If that were true, there would be a real revolt. It has its foot on the neck of 62% of us who can't afford $500 when the car breaks down.
Right.
And the system is defended by those 38% by the PMC shit-lib crowd who can. And they build a system that acts as its own fortress. And so that needs to be torn down. And so what we got to do is, to keep my grocery store metaphor going here, you've got to take a 10-pound bag of apples and just drop it on that scale. Where it's going to land, nobody knows. And wherever it lands, it's going to be a hybrid of some kind, right? So that's why I never really bothered being too doctrinaire in my vision of what we need. Because, well, first of all, we're never going to get what we need. Whatever we get, I'm sorry to have to revive this theme from a few shows ago, whatever you get is eventually going to fail. They say communism doesn't work. That's true. Capitalism doesn't work. No system works. Society doesn't work. Civilization doesn't work because human beings don't work. Everything organic dies. It's funny. I woke up the next morning.
Some things work better than others.
But yeah, that's true. There is a quality of life issue. But I woke up the day after we did that show, because now when we go live, we have a big enough audience where, like, people on Twitter kind of talk about us a little bit, so we see our mentions, a little bit. And somebody gave a good review of that episode. They're like, on this episode, Keaton reminds us we're all going to die. That was the one sentence review of that. So I don't want to get too morbid again. But just as a reminder, like, before we get too doctrinaire about anything, nothing works. Nothing succeeds forever, because nothing lasts forever. Nothing man-made is immortal. So anyway, that's my sermon on that. Should we do the White House Correspondents' Dinner?
Sure.
All right, we'll do this because we have to, and only because we have to. Like I said, we spoke about this earlier, so forgive us, folks, if we repeat ourselves. By the way, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We got a big crowd
since
in
Keaton is so enthusiastic about the segment. Hit the like and subscribe button.
Yeah. Since we're really bringing the enthusiasm. This is what we call an obligatory segment. I mean, I found Biden's speech pretty boring, but the White House Correspondents' Dinner was held last night, obviously, in Washington, D.C., and President Joe Biden made a big theme of his speech, press freedom. So let's take a listen to the first couple minutes here.
To the world. The free press is a pillar, maybe the pillar, for free society, not the enemy. Thomas Jefferson wrote, you all know this quote. Thomas Jefferson wrote, "We're left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government. I should not hesitate to prefer the latter." To Evan's parents, Ella, Mikhail, and sister Danielle, as I've told you in person, we, not just me, we all stand with you. Evan went to report in Russia to shed light on the darkness that you all escaped from.
So he's talking about Evan Gerskovich, who is a Wall Street Journal reporter who is being detained in Russia on espionage charges now. And there were a lot of people in the audience with free Evan buttons. Now, that's about all I'm interested in playing of this speech here. The hypocrisy is obviously quite obvious when Trevor Noah gave his speech about press freedom at the last one or the one before. Again, this all happens while...
No, look. This has all been cranked up. Do we have that video?
Yes.
That with, Okay, so this has all been cranked up in the wake of a White House Correspondents' Dinner that used to, for a long time, it had built up into this kind of disgusting display of the interconnectedness of business and Hollywood and the press. But the comedians were kind of the saving grace, because after Colbert did his number on Bush, you never knew quite what the comedians were going to do. Were they going to play ball? Were they going to completely go off the reservation? They didn't mind what Colbert did to Bush because they're all libs in the audience, except for the Fox News people, pretty much. And by then, they probably weren't all that crazy about him either. This was pretty late in his regime. Michelle Wolf attacked them. That was the line. And if you go back and you look at some of their reaction, you had Mika just lambasting her, and they tried to make it about the fact that she made a joke about Sarah Huckabee Sanders' makeup. They tried to make it about that, as if that's what they were outraged about, so that they could justify that outrage, because clearly the outrage was that she went after them. She went after the press. She went after their class. After that, they didn't even have a comedian the next year. And now the White House Correspondents' Dinner used to be a pretty big deal. This year, I didn't even know it happened until after it happened. I didn't even know it was coming up. Nobody pays attention to it anymore because nobody's ever going to be allowed to do a Michelle Wolf again. So why would you watch it?
Yeah, and it also lost some momentum once Trump, decided not to go. Right.
And he was right.
Because it doesn't, a thing doesn't maintain its momentum. Like if a TV show goes off the air for a few years, it's tough to get that momentum back. But let's play a little bit of that.
Which is why my petition to bring back Carnival still goes unanswered at HBO.
Exactly. Right. Once it's over, it's over. But let's play a little bit of that Michelle Wolf bit here. This is from, what was this? That has to be 2017 or 2018, something like that. Probably 2017. Probably the first one since Trump took office. I forget exactly, but it's probably right. Here we go.
You guys are obsessed with Trump. Did you used to date him? Because you pretend like you hate him, but I think you love him. I think what no one in this room wants to admit is that Trump has helped all of you. He couldn't sell steaks or vodka or water or college or ties or Eric. But he has helped you. He's helped you sell your papers and your books and your TV. You helped create this monster, and now you're profiting off of him. And if you're
I remember that. So that who just clapped, that's Jeff Weaver. That was Bernie's campaign manager.
I have a picture of myself with him and Tad Devine.
The lone applause in the room came from him. Exactly. We'll let this finish.
And that's why you'll never see him invited again.
Give him some money because he doesn't have any. Flint still doesn't have clean water.
And that is why this year you had a Daily Show hack. And that is what you'll have from now on. They will never allow anyone who is not a tried and true, dyed-in-the-wool corporate comedian on that stage again after what she did.
Yeah. No, yes, for sure.
But
You
free
had Trevor
speech,
Noah.
free speech, free criticism, right? That's what they're all about. That's what this event is about, freedom of speech. Their admiration for open discourse and debate. But as soon as somebody got up there and criticized them, they changed the whole way that they do the White House Correspondents' Dinner. That tells you who these fucking people are. That and the clip, we should have pulled that clip of George Bush doing his wonderful one-man stand-up routine when he was the subject about not finding any WMDs, and them all, they were hooting and hollering at that.
Yeah, he showed like pictures of the White House, of the Oval Office, being like, yeah, those WMDs have to be somewhere. Yeah, right. But obviously, I put a little meme together last time when Trevor Noah hosted it, just mentioning the fact that Julian Assange is being tortured to death for the crime of doing journalism.
He's another piece of shit.
Yeah. Who? Oh, yeah. Well, Noah. Yeah, obviously. Well, it's all going to come from that same pool, right? Whenever they have a comic come and do this. But look, it's no longer a zeitgeist thing. It no longer even really grabs page one headlines anymore. I think
like
that's
I said, I
because
didn't even know it was happening.
Trump took the momentum out of it. And look, I mean, the mainstream press has just become more and more irrelevant as online media, i.e. us and shows like ours and people much bigger than us in our space have sort of caught on. Who cares about these people anymore? Really? I mean, the only thing that keeps them legitimate is that they have the resources to go out and get information and break stories that the independent media doesn't. So to a certain extent, and in certain instances, information must run through them because the smaller outlets just don't have it to go out and get stuff, get scoops, get stories. They can't send a reporter anywhere in the world, have them there within 12 hours, the way the New York Times can.
But you know what? If the censorship regime doesn't beat us first, it could happen. It could happen in this forum, in the method that I described, because we have people all over the place. And if someone were to organize enough of those people and you had a channel that was as successful as some of these YouTube channels, like, look, Kyle just wants to pay for his dye jobs over there. But look, with $2 million, you could create a network on YouTube. You could. He doesn't care enough to do that with the money. He likes his lifestyle. And he's not the only one, not to just pick on him, Majority Report, any of these guys, man. I mean, they're making serious money. They could do that if they wanted to, but they prefer to line their pockets. If you get somebody who gets that successful in this space, who actually gives a fuck, it could be done. It could be done. I'm sure you could reach out to YouTubers who are together and solid enough around the world to ask them to do on-the-ground reporting and make a network out of it.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it could happen. Sure could. Absolutely. All right. Let's do some super chats. And then we will move on with the rest of the show here. So,
all right, let's do it.
Patrick Donahue, thank you for the £5, my friend, or the €5. After Biden binned healthcare plan as soon as he got elected and screwed over $15 an hour, AOC still gave him an A, sums up the fraud squad. Yeah, and
it's just sad as well. It's just sad.
Indeed. Very, very well said. Billy D, thanks for the $19.99. With the security state's ability to surveil Merkel, for example, why wouldn't they also drop in on Ilhan, AOC, and Sanders? They have access to communications for decades. Drop out Bernie or your wife goes to jail.
I've suggested that they had enough on Jane to intimidate him. It's possible.
It's possible. I take the Occam's razor view that what happens to these people is they get lazy. Like, they just get lazy. It's easier past a certain point to just toe the party line. If you can find a rationale that will work with enough of your supporters, right? Not all of them. They don't need all of them. They just need most of them. Find an argument that lands with most of them. Make that argument. Fascists are in our midst. We don't have time for a conversation about issues now, right? And that's it. That's what works, right? I don't think they need. They don't need people dragging them into back rooms and pushing them around and smacking them across the face. It's like, look, these things over time, it becomes obvious to these people what the easy way is and what the hard way is, and most people choose the easy way. I think that's human nature.
Well, look at you want to talk about somebody who started from an unassailable moral position. Look at, I'm almost positive, I don't want to, speak ill of a man who did great civil rights work in his time. Wasn't it John Lewis who falsely claimed that he met the Clintons during the civil rights era, but hadn't seen Sanders? That was John Lewis, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So look how he ended up. So if he could end up that way, AOC, who's she? John Lewis. This was a man who got his head cracked open for civil rights, and he ended up a show for the Clintons.
Right. Exactly. And that just happened over time, because over time it became obvious to him which way was the easy way, right? I mean, you take the path of least resistance, obviously. All righty. So, long story short, thanks for the $5. Irrational people Russ was trying to interview, I assuming you're talking about the cowbell and the bullhorn people, are more of an obstacle than billionaires. Sweden has nice things with more per capita billionaires than us.
I could have used a little more cowbell.
They're a much smaller country than we are, but I take your point. Look, the number of people with whatever it is, 10-figure net worths is not necessarily the issue. It's a concentration of capital, not just in the hands of individuals, but in the hands of corporations. And yes, I would argue in the hands of the top 20%, the top 30%, right? I mean, the disparities between the upper middle class and the poor are pretty sick here.
Well, and
it's
the
not
fact
just
that
the top, the whole like Bernie and Occupy Wall Street framing is politically convenient framing. It's easy to understand. It makes for a nice slogan, the 99 versus the 1%. Right. And past a certain point, yeah, I mean, it does get absolutely shocking and, in my opinion, sickening how much people can just, I won't even say earn, how much capital people can sort of accumulate using nothing but their existing capital. That's what capitalism is. You don't use labor to get capital. You use capital to get capital, right? So that is a problem, I would say. But beyond that, it's much broader.
Yeah. A lot of it is the fact that there is nobody and has been nobody since Clinton sold out the unions fighting for the working class. The working class has no representation anymore in the United States. So this is the result that you're going to get. In the segment that you bravely carried on with Sabby when my camera fucked me a couple of weeks back or last week, it demonstrated, look, Washington State has the most regressive tax system, more than Texas. So at that point, that's how you get here, because there is nobody. The liberal class doesn't give a shit. They probably give less of a shit about the working class than the Republicans do, because that's not their base anymore. They have nothing but contempt for those people. Right. They hide it as racism. It's really classism. They hate those people for not being them. Right. Bill Maher's disgusting monologue he did a few years back about, we have Chef Wolfgang Puck. They have Chef Boyardee. That's how they think of the working class. They're not going to do anything for them.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Two more here. Bennett Weiss, that's my dad. Thank you, Dad. $42.27. Thank you.
He always comes up with these odd figures.
An odd figure. Well, it looks like Tusker followed his lead and gave us an odd figure herself down there. But were you able to find a clip of Kamala talking? We didn't have anything of Kamala talking. I don't think she spoke. And if we only had Jose there.
I think he's talking about the one where it was just bizarre. where she was just like, so we're in the present now, and there's the past, and there's the future.
Was that last night?
And the future is no. That was about a week ago.
I think he's talking about the White House correspondents because he says,
did she speak at it?
I don't think she did. But he has said, if we only had Jose there, I'd pay for that tux rental. Yeah, Jose Vega would be a great. He would be a great +1 to bring along.
That would basically be his ring cycle. Like that would be his ultimate achievement.
Exactly. That would be the grand finale.
Yes.
Tusker for the 3073. Thank you. Welp just got home and immediately got called back in. I guess you got called back in to work. That sucks, but enjoy some of my time and half money. Well, thank you, Tusker. We appreciate that as always.
Thank you, Tusker.
Abiding 71. Thanks for the 99 cents. This has been our Super Chat Game Break. The Super Chats, folks, really do help quite a bit. So does becoming a patron at patreon.com/DueDissidence. And you can go to DueDissidence.substack.com. We are going to show our patron scroll in just a moment, but we do have one more thing to get to before we hit our main topics of the night. Russell, why don't you set this up for us, please?
Okay, so RFK has been having a really hard time raising money for his campaign. So he decided that what he really has to sell are Kennedy family stories. So he's dropped his first clip on YouTube. It's doing very well. It's gone viral, where he's telling a really interesting story about the Kennedy family history. So we have it here, and we're going to take a look at that.
All right. And we should probably mute our mics up for this also, so we'll full screen it. You'll get the full experience, everybody.
Hello, this is RFK Jr., and these are true Kennedy family stories. So today we're going to talk about the day that I became, in some cultures, a man. So I was helping my father on his campaign. We were in the car. We were driving in Florida. And in the front seat was a local businessman, Santo Traficante, who I called Uncle Santo. Some people say that he was a gangster, but to me, he was never anything but kind. So we're in the car, and he looks back at me, and I was very young at the time by American standards, but he was from the old country, so to him, I was already a man. And he looked at me, and he looked at my father, and he says, "Bobby, has he ever been with a woman?" And my father gets very embarrassed, very red in his face. He said, No, Santo, he hasn't been with a woman. Of course, that was my father. We talked. And Santo says, "Well, Bobby, we have to change that." And Bobby said, no, Joan will get very angry. And then my Uncle Teddy, he was driving. This is before Chappaquiddick. They still let him drive. And he busted my father a good one. That was how he was. He was a mean drunk. That's why they called him the Lion of the Senate, because he would get them in the back room and he'd wail on them, from what I'm told. So, but that was when Teddy got like that, everybody just shut up, right? They just did what he said. So he busted my father, and that was it. Not another word out of him. So Santo says, "All right, let's go to the place." So the place was, I guess, what you would call a brothel. Let's call it what it is. And this was run by Santo and his friends. I don't have to tell you who his friends might have been. And so we get there, and oh my God, I'm a young kid. The thing's going on. You got Sinatra over here. You got Sammy over there. Peter Lawford. Oh my God, he was hung like a Great Dane. They used to call him the Loch Ness Monster, because at the end of his member, it was curved, like the picture, like it was like that. So that's what they called him. So we get there, And Santo, he picks out a girl for me, and she's very horrified. She says, Santo, he's too young. He's too young. Santo, he gave her the look. And when my Uncle Santo, even with my father, when he gave you the look, you did what he said. So we went upstairs, and I was very embarrassed. She was very embarrassed. And honestly, it was not the best. It was very awkward for both of us, I think. And I cried afterwards. But nonetheless, from that day forward, I developed what you could say an appreciation for women in that line of work. So today, even when I'm campaigning, if I have a little extra time, I will usually patronize. Can you still say prostitute? I'm not sure. But I will usually patronize a prostitute in whatever town I happen to be in. And this has led me to be a very strong advocate for legalized prostitution as a human right. And also, my experience has led me to believe a lot of what I believe about pharmaceuticals. And please allow me to explain, because I have been with at least 400 women since that day in that profession. And I'm what they call a bareback rough rider, as was my father, and especially my uncle. And my father was probably with more. And my uncle, when he would show up in Vegas, no one was safe. So none of us, this is the point of the story, none of us ever got anything. Not the clap, not syphilis, nothing. So this is part of how I have come to the conclusion. The pharmaceutical industry have made these things up. There is no clap, there is no syphilis. It's probably malnutrition. And this is how they sell you drugs. Because if I haven't gotten these things, if my father, and especially if my uncle, the former president, didn't get any of these things, well, that speaks for itself, doesn't it? So this has been a true Kennedy family story. And also, I hope you've learned something about some of my views and some of what I would do as president. Next time, we'll talk about the time that I walked in on Sammy Davis in the pool house with a very compromised Aunt Margaret. Until next time, keep the faith.
So there you have it. You got to unmute. That's usually me.
Yeah.
There you have it. I really want to hear that Aunt Margaret story.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe that'll be the next one. Thank you very much to our patrons. We're going to do our patron scroll here before we get into our main segments of the evening. We have a lot to cover tonight, including some stuff that I thought we were not going to be covering, honestly, which we'll get to in just a moment. We actually have 4 main segments this evening. We got a little bonus one at the end that is not in the thumbnail advertising. So we hope you guys will stick around for that. But we're making pretty good time so far, 8 p.m. Our patrons keep us going, patreon.com/DueDissidence and DueDissidence.substack.com. We want to thank our new signups this week, Sean L., Counselor Guy, you were here in the chat last time. You joined during the show last time. And then on Substack, Charmaine B. and Richard P. joined
Yeah, can
via
I step
Substack.
away for a second?
Yeah, of course. So, thank you guys all for signing up for that. You are on the scroll right now. We got another scroll coming up here in just a moment. Did I do this here? Oh, yeah, there we go. That's the end of that scroll. And then starting this scroll, you guys are on the scroll. I think, Jezzy, I think the confusion was I confused you with Kitschy last time. Because Kitschy I see in the chat right now. So I think that's why, for some reason, I thought that you had been added to the scroll. So I do apologize about that, but I realize where I went wrong on there. But you're all on the scroll this time. We'll take some super chats right now. Red Z. What's Kamala's take on the caste system? She's top. Yes, good one, Red Z. Red Z usually has these cryptic super chats, but that one I got. Good joke. Appreciate that. Ellen Jimerson, brilliant monologue, Russell. LOL. Yeah, I noticed some people were saying he sounded a little bit more like Bernie than RFK. There was a little bit of that New York Jewish accent there, even though that's not quite RFK's accent, but I liked it anyway. I thought that kind of made it his. So that's why I didn't even give that note, to be honest. Chris Bishop, bareback Rough Rider. Yeah, Russell liked that line too. LMAO, Russell, killing me. All right. That's our scroll. Russell, you got to unmute because you just stepped away.
Some of the RFK stands did not take that in the spirit of humor. That it was intended. Come on, man. Gotta have a sense of humor about these things. We're all going down, baby.
Yeah. And, like I said, we're not doing much of the RFK Marianne stuff tonight. In fact, we have nothing
or at all
related to that.
We're not doing
on the list this evening. Not at all. All righty. So let's get on to our main segments here. This is the first one. This is an important one. Speaking of the press and freedom of the press, Seymour Hersh came out with a new Substack article a couple of weeks ago called Trading with the Enemy. And in it, he alleges widespread corruption within the Ukrainian government, including President Volodymyr Zelensky himself, who, according to Hersh's source, which he bases this article on, has skimmed $400 million worth of aid for himself. So we're going to read a little bit of this Cy Hersh piece here. The Ukraine government, headed by Volodymyr Zelensky, has been using American taxpayers' funds to pay dearly for the vitally needed diesel fuel that is keeping the Ukrainian army on the move in its war with Russia. It is unknown how much the Zelensky government is paying per gallon for the fuel, but the Pentagon was paying as much as $400 per gallon to transport gasoline from a port in Pakistan via truck or parachute into Afghanistan during the decades-long American war there. What is also unknown is that Zelensky has been buying the fuel from Russia, the country with which it and Washington are at war, and the Ukrainian president and many of his entourage have been skimming untold millions from the American dollars earmarked for diesel fuel payments. One estimate by analysts from the Central Intelligence Agency put the embezzled funds at $400 million last year, at least. Another expert compared the level of corruption in Kyiv as approaching that of the Afghan war, although there will be no professional audit reports emerging from the Ukraine. Go on to slide number 2 here. Zelensky's been buying discount diesel fuel from the Russians, one knowledgeable American intelligence official told me. And who's been paying for the gas and oil? We are. Putin and his oligarchs are making millions on it. Many government ministries in Kyiv have been literally competing, I was told, to set up front companies for export contracts for weapons and ammunitions with private arms dealers around the world, all of which provide kickbacks. Many of those companies are in Poland and Czechia, but others are thought to exist in the Persian Gulf and Israel. Quote, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that there are others in places like the Cayman Islands and Panama, and there are lots of Americans involved. An American expert on international trade told me. Let's just read one more piece here. The issue of corruption was directly raised with Zelensky in a meeting last January in Kyiv with CIA Director William Burns. His message to the Ukrainian president, I was told by an intelligence officer with direct knowledge of the meeting, was out of a 1950s mob movie. The senior generals and government officials in Kyiv were angry at what they saw as Zelensky's greed, so Burns told the Ukrainian president because, quote, he was taking a larger share of the skim money than was going to the generals. Now,
who could have seen this coming? You dump over $100 billion into the most corrupt country in Europe with no oversight. Who could have seen that coming?
Well, listen, most corrupt country in Europe is just a very negative way of saying emerging, struggling democracy.
That's
right.
true.
That's what they are.
True.
They are
That's
trying.
true.
They're making an effort. They're trying not to steal money, but they just, it's hard. It's like quitting fast food.
Right.
It's so tempting. You're driving around, you got McDonald's and Burger Kings everywhere.
You get
right?
addicted to the sugar.
Exactly. So they're giving it their best shot. But if this is true, that's obviously a big story. Also got no press at the White House Correspondents' Dinner last night. This story's actually been out for a couple of weeks. We've been meaning to cover it, and just other things have been popping up. But this story has been out there for a bit. And I want to paint a little bit of a bigger picture here with regards to the opportunism of war, the masters of war, right? The war machine, the military-industrial complex, as it's called. Here's U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo speaking at the U.S.-Ukraine Partnership Forum a few days after this article was released, delivering good news to the audience that CEOs in the private sector are willing to, quote-unquote, help in the quote-unquote reconstruction of Ukraine, which she estimates will take a long time and cost a lot of money.
Yes, we work today, but we are committed to the future. As the president said when he was with President Zelensky, we're going to be with you for as long as it takes. For as long as it takes. And that includes reconstruction, which will be years and a decade in the making, and that's, of course, what we're here to talk about today. And we know the price tag is high, and the country is being pummeled every day. The World Bank says reconstruction and recovery, the price tag has grown to over $400 billion, and that will continue to grow. And here's the reality, and you know this, government can't do it alone. We will do our part. President Biden and our team are utterly committed, but we need you. This has to be a public-private partnership if we're going to get this
I love
done.
how she says that like that's supposed to be, what, bad news for them? We wish we didn't have to ask you
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is she's
invest in Ukraine and make a fortune on the reconstruction. Looking at you, BlackRock, who was in the House that night. A BlackRock senior advisor actually got up there and spoke. Oh, I mean, if we have to take those contracts and build those cities back up, I guess we will. I really wish we didn't have to, though. I guess if it's for democracy, if it's for freedom, if you need us, we'll do it, right? It's going to take a public-private partnership.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is neoliberalism summed up. I mean, it's just. But that's it. She just described the core premise of neoliberalism, right? Government is going to cede a lot of its functions to private enterprise, which in exchange is going to do it at much greater expense than government would, and they're going to line their pockets. This is what we see in the way we conduct war now. Now you have contractors doing the food. The army used to do all that stuff themselves. They did all their building of latrines. Now this is all subcontracted because you can't stuff money in the pockets of your donors if the military takes care of its own needs, right? You can't. Nobody profits from that. This is the same thing. They can't do just a Marshall Plan. They have to stuff money in the pockets of Goldman Sachs and all the rest of their corrupt criminal friends who are getting rich off of this war and pretending it's a moral crusade, when actually, you notice every time one of these existential threats peter out, we find another one, right? Just as ISIS was defeated.
Right.
Now it never ends. It never ends because it's profitable. It's profitable. It's capitalism out of control.
Well, this one is more profitable for firms like BlackRock and the Vanguard Group and whoever else goes in there, because when it's a white country that gets invaded, we have to invest in the reconstruction, right? When it's a brown country that we just level, like what? Libya? Well, we just kind of left it there. Syria, we just leave it there. Who cares, right? But this is a white country. We have to rebuild. And look what she says here.
Of course. You can't leave a country like that in Europe.
No. You can't leave a European country in shambles. You have to contract out the reconstruction to BlackRock, right?
Of course.
But we need you. This has to be a public-private partnership if we're going to get this done. Now, here's the good news. I talk to CEOs every day, from the big companies to the small companies across industry. They want to help. You're all here today. You want to help. The chamber is showing extraordinary leadership. CEOs say, we want to be there for Ukraine.
CEOs say we want to be there for Ukraine. CEOs want to help. What do you mean help?
They're helpful
Help
people.
what? They're going to do it for
Yeah.
free? No.
Yeah.
No. They'll help.
They're not doing it for free?
No. We'd be happy to help by accepting billions of dollars worth of contracts to rebuild this country that we helped level by egging on this war for the better part of the last 30 years.
The problem was now we had Paulie as a partner. Business is bad. Fuck you. Pay me.
Right.
Place got hit by lightning. Fuck you. Pay me. Yeah, now you brought the United States in. What do you think? The United States is just going to protect your little struggling, corrupt, fledgling democracy, whatever you want to call it? Nah, man, we got to get paid now. We gave you a lot of money here. We gave you a lot of weapons. We gave you a lot of ammunition. Now we got to eat.
Well, you'll be happy to know, Russell, that the Ukrainians seem on board with this as well. Here's Dmitry Olyanik. I hope I pronounced that last name correctly. That's a tough one. He's the deputy governor of the National Bank of Ukraine, expressing his vision to modernize Ukraine and make it friendly for private investment. So see how all the pieces are sort of coming together. See how this is all, maybe this will end happily ever after all. For the people who stand to make a few bucks. War tends to work out for these kinds of people every time, no matter what, does it not? Here's Dimitri.
Sure does.
Time is running short, but Sergey, I wonder if you could share some further thoughts about the Ukraine's ambitions on creating a better business environment, rule of law, and that enabling environment which is so important to attracting private capital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely that is really important, and I suppose that this principle of building back better so implies not only to the physical sense of the reconstruction process in Ukraine, but also in the sense of building Ukraine as the modern, transparent, efficient, competitive, institution-based and rule of law-based democracy. Definitely, in order to achieve that, so we need a lot. We have a lot to do in order to change, this acceptance of Ukraine as the country which is, which is friendly for the private investments and for the businesses. Sure.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. And that's it. Look, I understand, scumbag's going to scumbag. These people are going to line their pockets. They're going to profiteer off the death and suffering of war. What's sickening are the morons with the Ukrainian flag in their profile and in their front yards, people who are sending money for this. Are you insane? Are you insane? What's wrong with you? You're just enriching arms dealers, bankers, Goldman Sachs. It's just amazing the way that people swallow this propaganda.
And the ultimate irony here is that the biggest victims in this whole episode are the ordinary people of Ukraine.
Of course.
Who are being killed and who are having their country just ravaged. So it can be built back better.
Right.
By American and Western corporations. I mean, how obvious does it have to be? I feel like, I don't know if they were this out in the open about it 20 years ago. Maybe it's because we didn't have social media at that time. So like when these people went in, on stage at these conferences and just spilled the secret so openly.
Well, that
maybe
was
they still did that 20 years ago, but we didn't see it. Right.
Well, we did. That's why it was, we didn't. That's why it was so shocking when I'm almost positive that was Fahrenheit 9/11, where he showed them having that kind of a conference talking about how much money they were going to make in Iraq. I think it was Microsoft Somebody from Microsoft was speaking about the business opportunity in Iraq. And it was shocking because we didn't see stuff like this as much as we do now because we didn't have social media.
Right. Now it's all over social media when this happens. So maybe, it's not that they never did it before. It's just now we can see it. Right. But if you see it right there, I mean, don't you understand what this is about? Don't you understand, as Smedley Butler said almost 100 years ago?
I was just going to say that. We should do a segment on that book.
Yeah. War is a racket. It's a racket. It serves those who benefit from war and no one else. There are no winners in war except for those people on that stage. They had Citibank there. They had BlackRock there. The guy from BlackRock was the first guy to use the Build Back Better thing, right? He actually kicked that off, that phrase there.
Right.
But yeah. And, meanwhile, I mean, obviously we had the Seymour Hersh piece talk about the Ukrainian government skimming money. You want to discredit that and say that's one man with anonymous sources? I wouldn't discredit that because
you could discredit almost everything in the New York Times and the Washington Post on that basis.
Well, not only that, but
sources familiar with the matter say.
Right.
That's usually their entire attribution.
But whatever you feel about that, the reason I thought those two videos were important to play in this segment is because even if you don't take Seymour Hersh at his word, there it is right on stage. They're saying it right on stage. That's just a version of his article. It's not the government. It's worse than the government. It's these vultures just swooping in to profit off of the ruin of Ukraine and profit off of the reconstruction, which they say, it's going to take a long time. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's not going to be cheap. Luckily, we have these wonderful CEOs who have stepped up and volunteered to take our money to rebuild it. Just amazing.
Well, it's the Clinton Global Initiative. They might be gone, but those methods are forever. See, the problem with the Clinton Global Initiative is it was built around buying influence from the Clintons. So once they ran out of campaigns to back, that's why it collapsed. Now, these things like Davos and the World Economic Forum and the Aspen Institute, those are eternal, right? You can buy influence. That's the way you do it. You can buy influence from them forever. It doesn't depend on the political destinies of a particular family. It doesn't depend on Hillary Clinton political fortunes, right? And nobody in their right mind thinks Chelsea's ever going to make any kind of politician. So once that ended with Hillary, it was over. And I mean, it told you what the purpose of the enterprise was, that it collapsed as a result of them running out of campaigns.
Right. I just want to take a couple of questions here from one of our antagonistic chatters here. Why is supporting the victims of war crimes wrong? And why don't you ask them what they think, Keaton? I'm assuming you mean the Ukrainian people. Look, if you ask any invaded people what they think about a war, they're going to say, we want to fight back. That's natural, right? If somebody invaded our country, we would want to fight back. I don't fault the Ukrainian people for wanting to fight back, not whatsoever. Our role as a supposedly neutral party, or if not neutral party, a party that is not willing to actually put boots on the ground ourselves. So neutral in that way, not neutral in the sense that we're obviously funding one side of it. But as a party that is not intimately involved in the fighting itself, our role should be to make peace, right? We have a role to play as well. This is not just a conflict between two sides and we pick which side we think is on the side of the angels and fight to the death against the other side. If that were the attitude, that were the right attitude to take, then the whole world would be at war all the time. Right? I mean, it is the role of the West, in my view, to step in and make peace. I'm not saying hands off. We're not saying hands off, let the Russians have at it. No. No, we're saying intervene to make peace. That's been my message from the second the invasion started. Literally the day the war started, we went live. We were on Facebook at the time. We didn't have a YouTube channel yet. But yeah, that's been my point of view on this from day one.
Well, and also, I mean, you have to take into account, if you want to understand some of where we're coming from, go back and look at the reporting on how Boris Johnson went to Ukraine and they were going to negotiate a peace deal. And the U.S. told them no. you cannot have a peace deal. So that's definitely informing part of, I think, our attitude on it. I think also the history there of 2014 and the U.S. government helping to foment a coup there. Russia making it very clear that the Ukraine joining NATO would be a red line, and the U.S. antagonizing Russia for years. And there's video of that, of Lindsey Graham, and what was he with McCain?
He was with McCain, and actually they were with Amy Klobuchar as well. There was a bipartisan trip.
Right. So they're over there talking about how we're going to back them militarily and antagonizing. We wanted this war, and we instigated this war. I don't think if you look at the evidence, you can dispute that. And if you look at what we've done since it broke out, we've done everything we can to keep it going. So this is not that we don't care about the Ukrainian people. We feel bad for the Ukrainian people because they're being used as cannon fodder for a game of Risk, where the United States is trying to maintain its hegemony by draining the resources of Russia.
Right. I mean, that's what I said earlier. Like, the ultimate irony here is that the victims of this are the Ukrainians.
Ukrainians.
And so the people who want the violence to stop are the people who are actually acting in the best interest of the Ukrainian people. But the Ukrainian flag pin wavers have it the exact opposite.
Oh, my God.
They're just buying a line of bullshit that will only lead...
God damn it! You're a Putin apologist! Putin is in my closet! God damn it!
Yeah.
He's stalking me! There's a van outside my house!
You're a fucking idiot. Shut up.
Yeah, I mean, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. And you know, like I said, that's the ultimate irony. The ultimate irony is that the people who are advocating for peace are doing so because peace is what's best for Ukraine. Peace is what's best for Ukraine. Not an unwinnable war. Not an unwinnable war that United States Capitol is just raiding and looting.
Right.
That's what's happening now. That's
exactly. The idea that the United States ever goes to war for moral reasons is absolutely fucking absurd. If that were the reason, there are a lot of places around the world we would go and get militarily involved in, and we don't. We only get involved when there is a geostrategic advantage or a financial gain or some of both.
All righty. Let's move on here. Do we have a couple of super chats here? I think we do. Oh, my dad liked your bit, Russell. Thanks, Dad. $25. Brilliant, even without a green screen. You have a green screen, don't you? That you
I do have a green screen. Yeah, I do.
Roy Woods Jr. White House Correspondents' Dinner below the belt. Yeah, did you just tweet at us something? We just got a Twitter thing. Somebody tweeted us the Roy Woods Jr., the comics bit at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. I haven't watched it. I will watch it after this, though. I believe you tweeted that at us, but thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right. Is that everything we have for now? Yes, it is. All right, perfect. So, folks, you might remember back in October 2022, friend of the show, Taylor Lorenz, broke a story about the White House's plans to recruit an army of Gen Z social media influencers. This was in the Washington Post. Inside the Democrats' elaborate attempt to woo TikTok influencers, a free trip to D.C., a private chat with Obama, and an hour in the Oval Office with Biden, the Democrats are rolling out the red carpet for social media influencers. And there's Joe Biden there posing for a selfie with some of those who are, I guess, auditioning for a place in the Zoomer Influencer Biden 2024 squad. Well, it seems they've found some influencers who they like, and they have made their presence known online. Here's a couple of them. Here's Harry and Chris for you. This is the clip that went viral recently. We got a couple more to show you, but this will give you a pretty good idea of what the Biden influencer team is up to.
Party doesn't understand about Gen Z is we don't like you. You claim you want to appeal to Gen Z, but you call us stupid, you say we're dumb, you say we're indoctrinated. I promise it's a losing strategy.
And Gen Z is watching the Republican Party extremely closely as they destroy our environment, take rights away from women, do nothing about kids being shot in schools, and if they think they can give the middle finger to our generation and get away with it, they're sorely mistaken.
What is this kid doing in the background here? What is he doing?
Flexing.
What is this? What is this?
What's this? What's the flex in the bicep there? Is that inciting violence? Is that an incitement?
Oh, it seems like he's inciting violence.
Seems like you may be inciting something.
Republicans,
right? Right? Why do you have to get so violent for? Right? I mean, why can't you just make your point? That's one of the more recent releases, but these guys have been at this for a while now, actually. Here's another one in which Harry Sisson attacks Marjorie Taylor Greene for defending the 21-year-old whistleblower Jack Teixeira, who leaked the Pentagon documents that indicated, as a throwback to our last segment, that the Ukraine war was heading for a stalemate at best. Here's what he has to say about Marjorie Taylor Greene defending that person. Talk about State Department talking points. Here we go.
Taylor Greene is now defending the 21-year-old who leaked top-secret classified U.S. documents. She said Jake Teixeira is white, male, Christian, and anti-war. That makes him an enemy to the Biden regime, and he told the truth about troops being on the ground in Ukraine and a lot more. Ask yourself, who is the real enemy? A young, low-level National Guardsman or the administration that is waging war in Ukraine? I mean, she can't possibly be serious, right? Like, this 21-year-old kid betrayed the United States. Like, look, we know that Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't care about America, but defending someone who betrayed this country? Really?
Defending someone who betrayed this country. Those are what the Bush-supporting nerds in high school would say. When I was in high school, the kids who wanted to reelect Bush, that's exactly the
In my day, we used to, it was the Reagan, we used to call them Reagan Nazis.
Right, exactly. Same exact thing. Same exact thing.
Yeah, they gotta get Christopher Walken back to do a more white boy bit. Because these guys, we need more white boy. It's not enough white boy. You're really going to want more white boy.
Yeah, I need some more white boy.
I got more white boy.
And the prescription is more white boy.
More white boy. We were talking about this earlier offline. Okay, so you look at Joe Biden's campaign commercial. It is all people of color. We talked about that when we looked at the commercial. And if you look at the people that they're setting up as cutouts to pretend that they're Biden supporters, they're all white. They're all white, and not just white. They are like Casper white. Everybody that they're getting. You look at Politics Girl, that is some shiksa, as my grandfather would have said. You look at these. I mean, these kids are like you almost feel like ChatGPT created them. They're so ridiculously, stereotypically suburban white kid.
Well, it's funny you mention that because the Republicans came out with an AI-generated ad in response to Biden's campaign launch video, and this could be an AI-generated TikTok influencer campaign. But no, you're right. And, what I said to you offline, I think is right, which is they put a lot of minority, workers, in the ad because they need non-whites for the votes. But the people who donate, like the PMC shit libs who respond to these ads and break out their checkbook, they're white. They're white people. The PMC white people are the one who write the checks, and then they need the non-white people to vote for them, and that's how they win. They stitch together 50% that way. But
you also made the point that they probably know somebody who knows somebody. That's how these kids got hooked up. They're hooking up their friends. They're hooking up their social class, just like Hollywood, right?
Well, that's what we're going to get into
You look at
right
someone
now.
who's successful in Hollywood, even if you don't know about it, even if their parents weren't like celebrity actors, they worked at Paramount, they worked at MGM, they had some job in the business where the kid got hooked up, where the kid did not start at the basement.
Well, that's what we're going to get into now because, these guys want to put out there that, no, they're just a couple of organic, Biden-loving white boys who really care about the environment and, women's right to choose and all that stuff. But Twitter users were quick to add a community note that Harry and Chris were paid DNC actors. So this started appearing under the tweets of their videos. Readers added context they thought people might want to know. In late 2022, Biden's campaign team contacted young social media influencers, including Harry Sisson, to draw in voters ages 18-29. They put their sources there. And then Sisson recently signed with Pallet Management. Pallet received more than $200,000 from the DNC in the last 8 months, and then they source that statement in those two links down there. So these guys, Harry and Chris, did not appreciate the insinuation or the outright claim that they were being paid by the DNC. And so they made a video denying it. Here's this.
Recently, many people on the right have been accusing myself and Chris of being paid by the DNC, and we just wanted to come on and say that's an incredibly dumb thing to think.
Yeah, like, congratulations, you discovered we're both signed to Pallet Management, which is in our bios. And Pallet's a huge company, right? They do marketing work, they do management work. So they receive that money to do marketing and to cover travel expenses separate from what we do. So we haven't...
Receive that from who? From the Democratic National Committee.
Exactly.
Right? That's been sourced. So the DNC pays this talent agency, and that talent agency then gets you to create content. Do you do it for free? I don't imagine they would have to pay them $200,000 if you did it for free, but let's hear them out here.
Seen a dime of that $200,000, like, do you really think I would dress like this if I had $200,000?
Yes.
And again, it's all
playing
public
a role.
information.
Right, because this is a costume. That's wardrobe.
It's a costume, right.
That's wardrobe. Exactly. It's called wardrobe. That's what we call it in a business. Wardrobe.
Wardrobe.
Yeah.
And we're also, you discovered we're Democrats, and we're going to vote for Joe Biden, which I think most people already knew.
And look, if the DNC is handing out checks, we should be first in line to receive them, but that's simply not happening, and we haven't received a dime from the DNC. And we want to make it clear, we're perfectly happy to work with organizations that share our vision. So if someone reached out to us and say, hey, we're trying to make sure the environment is protected, would love to work with them. But we are simply not working with the DNC, and we want to reiterate that everything that's been posted on social media is public information. This is not a home run story. It's all out there for everybody to see.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we're going to go continue our normal content like people want to see. Maybe we'll go hang out with Hillary and Hunter on an island or something, but not the home run story you think it is, and we love
All right, and we love you. Now, here's the thing. They ended up deleting that video shortly after they posted it, which leads you to believe that they were full of garbage. Right, because
why
he
else
puts
would they
that
delete
line
it?
in there. He puts that line, we are not working with the DNC in that video.
Right.
Whether they're being directly paid by the DNC is in question because the DNC's obviously gave some money to Pallet Management, to the agency, whether the agency pays the kids or whether the agency uses that to promote the video so the kids get more money through YouTube or TikTok, right, or where they post their content.
I mean, from
we don't
what
know
I
exactly what the relationship is, but that sentence there, we have not worked with the DNC, that's clearly false. It's just obviously false. And you know what I don't understand is why they don't admit that they're being paid to do this. Because look, a couple of 20-something-year-old kids getting paid very well to simp for Joe Biden, that makes you somewhat cool if you're making money, right? Can't knock the hustle. If you're doing this shit for free, you are some of the saddest losers to ever walk the earth. Like, if you are two 20-somethings who are just naturally and organically this into Joe Biden, that you have, if you go to their TikTok page, I mean, they have done hundreds of these things. I mean, they come out with a dozen of these things a day. It is insane the amount of content they put out there. If you're doing this for free, that speaks lower of you than if you're getting paid, I believe.
These are the uncoolest 20-something in America, or they're being paid.
Or they're being paid, right.
No, nobody would. Obviously, they're being paid. I mean, from what I know of how it works with influencers, they're paying that company, and the company is taking their cut, and they're passing on payments in exchange for cutting ads. They're getting, I mean, that's if L'Oreal wanted you to promote L'Oreal, that's how it would work. So yeah, I mean, clearly they're getting paid by the DNC. If they weren't, they wouldn't have taken. Why would they take? There was nothing wrong with it on the face of it. There was nothing wrong with the video on the face of it, unless you're lying. which clearly they are, and they were afraid it was going to come out. That would be the next shoe to drop. So they panicked and pulled it down.
Yeah, and why would they lie? Why would you make that up? First of all, why would you want people thinking you're doing this for free? That just makes you super lame if you're doing this for free. But second of all, it was out there in the Washington Post that Biden was doing this. I think the White House was very open about the fact that, yeah, we're hiring some people to
Were they
create content
clear
for
about
us.
hiring, though? Because the
Well, they said
impression I
recruiting.
got was exactly. They didn't make it clear these are going to be paid spokespeople. They made it sound more like, yeah, we invited them to have a chat with Uncle Joe, ask them to spread the word, spread the message.
I took from that campaign, I took from those news stories, because we talked about it a little bit when the news broke, that, yeah, they were going to be basically working with them to help them create content.
But
of course, there'd be a
I didn't think they'd pay them, though. No,
Well,
I
figured they
personally,
would. And look,
I didn't.
Well, here's why I did. Because, people in the audience might be watching those videos and they may be thinking, who on earth, who's not already convinced to vote for Joe Biden, would watch that and say, that's it, I'm in for Joe Biden? Nobody. These videos are not persuading anybody. They're not intended to persuade anybody. These videos represent perfectly what the Democratic Party MO is, which is to hook mediocre people up with large sums of money for being mediocre people. That's what it is.
Yep.
It is a gig flow. So what you have here are a couple of kids whose parents probably made some donations to the Democratic Party in the past, and they took a look and they say, oh, hey, we're looking to recruit some social media people to help with the campaign. Oh, look at these nice check from these people. Oh, pallet management. Who are they? Who's ever heard of pallet management? It's nobody. It's nothing. This is just mediocrity, right? There's just some like middling talent agency from God knows where. Oh, okay. They wrote us a few checks. You know what? Why don't we get in touch with those kids? Why don't we throw those kids a bone? We'll give them some money back. All right? That's how it works. That's how the party operates. That's what's most important to the Democratic Party, is maintaining those kinds of relationships with these kinds of people. That PMC donor base, they cut the checks, you give a little bit back, they write more checks, right? You give a little bit back, they create content to create more people to write more checks. That's what it's all about. It's all about sending a little money out to get a lot of money coming in. That's all that matters. Whether they convince people to vote for Joe Biden is irrelevant. They don't care. Win the election, lose the election, whatever. Our base is going to love this. Oh, look at these cute kids. And their base is stupid enough to actually think that it might influence people.
Well, because half their base have kids like this.
Right. Exactly.
The people who write the checks have kids like this. Yeah, and this is what I think those of us who campaigned for Bernie, I think almost everyone in our audience did on one or both of the campaigns, get involved in that campaign. This is what we really naively did not understand, that winning elections was beside the point.
Right.
That they're in the politics business. It's a business for them. When they're out of power, even better.
Right.
You got to donate so we can get back into power. And then when they're in power, they can, go to war in Ukraine and stuff money back into the pockets of their arms manufacturer donors. So they make it on both ends. They make it whether they're in power or out of power. They make it either way. They're in the politics business. So the idea of allowing somebody like Bernie Sanders to take over the party, that's like you walked into a microchip factory and explained why they should start making tires.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
They're not in that business. They're not in the tire business. They're in the microchip business. They're in the politics business. They're not in the helping people business. They're not in the serving the public business. They're in the politics business. They're in greasing their palms and greasing the palms of their rich criminal friends. That's it. That's all they're there for. That's what we didn't understand. That's what was so shocking to so many of us, because we thought it was a political party. We didn't realize that it's, basically something you could probably prosecute under the RICO Act if you had any prosecutors with the balls to do it.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Before we get into our next segment, we'll take a couple super chats. Also, when we were recording that RFK bit, we took the logo off, forgot to put it back on. So let's put our logo back on. And let's get to a couple of these here. Dwayne Vogel, glad to see the Vanguard boys finally got gainful employment. Yeah, they could have done that.
That's their cousins from LA.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Chris Bishop, remember when young people used to be anti-war? Yeah, those were the days. Well, like that's what I said, Chris. I said, that whole thing where he's railing against Jack Teixeira betrayed our country. First of all, I'm sorry. You want me to believe a 22-year-old kid actually thinks that way, actually knows who Jack Teixeira is? Is this on top of the news if they're not in on it? I mean, come on, they're in on it. They put the video up denying it, and then they took the video down. That's a tell.
Right.
That's a tell. Why they would even bother addressing the accusations, I don't understand. It seems so obvious they were in on it, and it's really nothing to be ashamed of. Hey, look, everybody's got a hustle, right? Whatever. Hey, these kids are getting paid by Biden to go put these videos up on TikTok. God bless them. I wouldn't have a problem with that.
It's hard out here for a pimp.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Somebody's got to do it, right? All right. So we got a couple more segments here to take care of. Okay, so folks.
Hey, I'm just going to answer this, even though it's not a super chat. Right. I know this is the kind of thing Keaton goes ballistic with this. So watch it. All right. So we do actually cover it. You want to hear us cover it? Become a patron. And we cover it because you know what? We don't want to get kicked off YouTube.
Right.
That is what will happen. This is why I have said on the show that if there is any candidate of any party who is convincingly running on reining in these tech platforms so that we can do that, they have my vote. That's why.
Even if they force feed Guantanamo Bay prisoners, Russell?
Well, we'll get into that.
We'll get into
that. I mean, they're all fucking criminals.
Yeah, but that's some sick shit. Anyway, that's coming up in a while.
All
right, so
I mean, there's a club downtown where people pay good money for that kind of treatment.
No, that is true. Adrian Stearns, I felt like I was watching a slightly young, dumber version of the Vanguard guys when they slobber over Marianne W. It's funny that you say that, Adrian, because these guys actually did make a video bashing Marianne, and it made me for a minute feel sympathetic towards Marianne. They put out a video. There are some people out there who are further to the left than me who want Marianne Williamson for the nominee, and I don't understand that.
I saw that
thing where they were punching left. So, I mean, come on, tell me these guys. I mean, ridiculous.
We should have thrown that up to earn some goodwill.
So we could defend Marianne. Yeah, exactly.
So we could just be show we're not completely heartless towards the Marianne fans.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, I think we've seen enough for them.
Yeah. I feel like I know a lot. So, some people got upset about the RFK thing. This is what it's, we used to have an expression in my neighborhood, stuck on stupid. I don't understand what part of if he ran as an independent, we're all ears, people don't understand. It's not really anything against RFK, but what are we talking about here? You're fucking running in a party that is a business. It's a business.
Right, that sends those kids out.
That's it. It's a business. They will never, ever, ever, ever run a fair primary. If RFK got anywhere near that nomination, he would either inherit he would take his turn on the family curse, God forbid, knock on wood. I don't wish that on him, but I'm calling it like it is. Or they would just pull the super delegates, or they'll just rig it like they always do, man. Like, that's what we're saying. That's all we're saying. It's nothing against, I made a little joke video. I'm going to try to find a woman who can do a good Marianne to do a counterpart. Eventually, I'll try to find somebody who can do a Biden. It's just a general comedy thing. Nothing personal about RFK specifically. But I don't know what part of the Democratic Party is an enormous waste of time people don't get. Like, that's it. He's at 20% in the polls. Motherfucker, I don't care if he's at 70% in the polls. They will not let that man be the nominee. Even if he said, I'm gonna break away from the party if I get the nomination. Even if he said that,
wouldn't matter.
You know, if he were going to run as an independent, if he were going to do a dirty break, then I'm listening. I'm listening. You're going to do a dirty break? You promising that? All right, I'm listening. He's not saying that. He's not saying that. Don't you remember my good friend Joe Biden? This fucking guy goes on Kim Iverson's show and talks about how Biden stood up for speech. Biden. You ever heard of Julian Assange? Stop it. Enough already. Jesus. Like, if he turns around and says, I'll run as an independent, we can take him seriously. As long as he says he's running as a Democrat, you know how that ends? I'm asking you to vote for my good friend Joe Biden. That's how that ends. All right? You think I'm wrong? All right. Come back to me in a few months.
Yeah.
Tell me if I was wrong.
All right. So this was a segment that we did not really intend to do. I didn't think we were going to do this. In fact, I took a chat last time where I explicitly said I do not intend to do this segment. But I'll explain to you why we are going to anyway, because certain circumstances have changed. So Steven Crowder has been feuding with the Daily Wire since a contract dispute earlier this year when they made him an offer that he didn't like. We covered that a bit. Now, the Daily Wire's Candace Owens had apparently hinted that Crowder had been going through some tough times in his life, with Crowder then confirmed on his show last week, announcing publicly that he had been going through, for the last year and change, a, quote, horrific divorce. Now, in his video, he said that the divorce was not his decision, implying that he was heartbroken at his wife's desire not to be with him anymore. And so for this reason, I initially decided we're going to leave this one alone. Who cares about Steven Crowder's divorce? Not really our business. Not really the kind of show we like to do. And, you know, if Crowder was being truthful there and he was heartbroken and this was a traumatic thing for him and his family, then why should Candace Owens go and air that dirty laundry? It's just kind of a low thing to do. We were really not interested in that. But since then, details have emerged, which this probably shouldn't be too surprising. They suggest that Crowder wasn't really being honest in his representation of his family situation. We learned that Crowder had skipped the birth of his twins in order to get elective surgery on his chest. He had a sunken chest. And we also learned that shortly after the birth of his twins
he falsely complained it was a medical condition.
Yeah, he falsely said it was because he couldn't breathe or and things like that.
It was limiting the blood flow in his heart, but it wasn't. It was completely untrue. It was totally cosmetic.
Yeah, right. And we also learned that shortly after the birth of his twins, he bought himself a townhouse and separated from his family, which obviously just completely refutes his claim that the wife wanted to separate and that had he had his way, they would still be a family. So after Crowder went public with what seems like a pretty flagrant misrepresentation, his wife contacted journalist Yashar Ali, who broke some of the details we just went over, and he also posted this now viral video of a discussion between Steven Crowder and his wife Hillary, which seems to be about a dispute over her having to go pick up groceries and him not wanting her to take the car, the one family car of the Steven Crowder household, a multimillionaire household here. So we're going to play some of this and break this down a little bit. And once again, the reason we're doing this is just one, because it seemed like what Crowder said when he went on air was just a complete lie. And number two, as a twin dad myself, who knows what it's like to have a wife 8 months pregnant with twins, as she is in this video, I feel I have some insights and maybe advice for some of the listeners, and maybe even to Steven himself if he happens to come by this. So here we go.
I drew a boundary. No, you just did it. I drew a boundary at abusive and cruel. You were not taking the car. Because if you refuse to do wifely things, then I will go pick up the groceries.
There is no groceries. I do have
steaks, wood pellets, my grill. I know it's an unreasonable request, but I'll go do it. How about you first? Hillary, how do you respect a man? Yes. How do a man respect? How do a man receive love and respect? No. How does a man? No, you're not taking the car. You're not taking the car.
Okay, now, a couple things here. There was a cut in there. You can tell by the time code on the bottom right of the screen. The wife did submit this to the journalist, which means there might be some information in here that she is editing out that makes her look bad, and it's quite possible that she's kind of a lousy person herself. The only thing we know about this person is that she fell in love with Steven Crowder, which doesn't speak great things to her character either, right? So this is not about defending her as a person. Number one, you got your wife there is 8 months pregnant. You're sitting there smoking a cigar. First of all, to be smoking a cigar in her presence is not at all considerate in the first place. Second, she's 8 months pregnant with twins. You're in a dispute over groceries and errands with a woman who is 8 months pregnant with twins. She probably has about 12.5 pounds of baby inside her. Imagine walking around. Imagine for all the men in the audience, our 85% male audience, walking around with a 12.5 pound weight in your stomach. Not just in your stomach, but feeding off the nutrients that you take in. Think of that. Think of how difficult it is to do anything under those circumstances. And here, he's berating her that she
Very
can't
much
take
like
the car.
the Alien series, only
Right.
for real.
Right, exactly. Here we go.
You are not.
Then I will ask them to pick me up. Would you like me to ask?
Oh, that's right.
It's not correct, Stephen.
Get an Uber.
Okay, Stephen, I can't.
Feeling some constraints?
Stephen.
Like, I can't
Stephen.
go. Listen to me. You want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my parents. I can't call my friends. I can't be home. You're going to take the car and leave me here. Hillary, just think of how boxed in you've made me.
What do you need me to pick up? I'll get it. I'll be back when I'm back.
No, that doesn't work either. You'll be back when you're back. That doesn't work either.
Do
you understand the difference between my life being set to the second and you going, I'll be back when I'm back?
Stephen?
Okay, I wanted to pause it there.
Yeah, he is a sick fuck. Because, look, one of the things that's so strange about this, he's a multi-millionaire, man. He could pick up the phone and get whatever he wants. He's talking about how he can't go anywhere if she takes the car. What are you talking about? You could order a limo. It'll be there in 20 minutes for you with the money.
You can have a driver on standby.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what's surprising to me too. Like they're talking about getting groceries. Like what?
Yeah. You ever hear of Instacart? I'll bring the
you-
groceries there.
Right. You can get Keith. You can get Keith.
Get Keith to come
He'll
drive
drive
you
out there. He'll drive out.
Drive down to Texas, deliver you some, taco sauce, whatever you eat down there, right? But it's amazing that, there's only one car, which does suggest an element of he wants to control where she is. Because if he didn't, why would you not have more than one car, right? But the other thing, look, let's say we interpret this charitably to him, which is he says, I can't go to my friends, I can't go to the gym, I can't go to my parents. Let's say he's not saying that because she's going to take the car. Let's say, because he says, my life is timed to the second, meanwhile you say you'll be back when you're back. He may feel a little boxed in, a little restrained by the fact that his wife is pregnant. Maybe she requires some more care. I doubt that. He doesn't seem like he's very interested in providing any of that care. He's just lounging. I mean, to have this conversation while you're lounging on your ass, smoking a cigar outside, hectoring your wife who's trying to go pick up groceries for you is just amazing. But let's say he is feeling a bit of a pinch there. Let's say his lifestyle is feeling pinched there. Because you know what? When you have kids, especially when you have twins, as I do myself, it is a huge lifestyle change. Dramatic, overnight. Now, she has not given birth yet to the kids.
Right.
But yes, it does require an immense sacrifice. Everything about your life changes, and it can be difficult. So, if he's going through some of that, I sympathize with that. But on the other hand, this is a guy who takes to the airwaves 5 days a week and lectures people about the importance of being a family person, abstinence to marriage. He's a real Christian right culture war crusader. And yet you don't have the wherewithal, you don't have it in you to suck it up and get through this, when I know you lecture people about this all the time, how they ought to be willing to.
Right.
But the thing is, when a lot of these Christian right zealots, especially the men, go off on those tears about family and the importance of family values and the family unit and being a strong father, what they mean is they need a dominion for themselves, right? And the wife has to bear the burden of raising the kids and cooking the food and keeping the home. And the man, because he provides, in this case, Crowder, makes God knows how much money on his YouTube and, whatever, podcast and all this stuff. He gets to feel like he's doing his part, and he gets to keep living his life more or less as he already has been. Right? So it's easy to preach family values when you don't expect that it should affect you in your daily life all that much. Of course, that's not realistically how it works. When your wife gets that pregnant, it is an enormous struggle for her to do anything, which means, you're going to be inconvenienced by it. It's going to be a major change. No, you're not going to get to go to the gym whenever you want or see your friends whenever you want. That's part of it. That's part of it. And for someone who preaches this as the ideal life, he should be a little bit more prepared to actually deal with it instead of being this pussy sitting on his couch on his ass, smoking a cigar, not letting your wife borrow the car to go pick up groceries for you. See, I told you, folks, this is going to be a family values sermon.
Well, I mean, from what this show's a little different than the other shows we usually do with crude sexual humor. Well, for one thing, I mean, there's a long history of these kind of Christian right religious figures having a lot of hypocrisy. I think very often people who are very interested in telling other people how to live their lives or have some issues, right? I mean, if you're that into telling other people how they should live, you probably got some skeletons in the closet. You probably have something you're trying to hide about yourself. Right. It's
exactly.
It's the stereotype of the anti-LGBTQ gay preacher.
Yeah, some shame, some regrets, some what could have been had this happened, had that
happened.
Well,
a lot of these people are just straight up narcissists. So, there's a whole Candace Owen side story here. She says that this is typical of him. That basically he's this, just very unstable person with poor emotional control who lies constantly to the people around him. And, given that Owens brought the receipts on this guy went and lied to his viewers about having a chest condition that's constricting his heart so that he gets half the amount of normal blood, and had people literally praying for him on air for his life, right? I mean, that's a sick fuck. Who does that?
Yeah.
Who does that? So somebody who would do that, it kind of all goes together. People don't act the way they act by accident. And usually once you know something like that about them, it'll connect to their behavior in other areas.
Right. All right, let's keep going.
The only way out of this is discipline and respect. It's the only way out of it, or we're at an impasse.
We are at an impasse.
Good. Because you can't have any discipline or respect. Yeah. There you go. You throw your hand, you give up so easily.
I don't give up so easily.
You give up so easily. I just said the only way out of this is discipline.
Okay, see, that's the part that really gets me going. Is you give up so easily. She's 8 months pregnant with twins. For her to get out of bed.
What are you even talking about?
For her to get out of bed and dress herself like that and prepare to leave the house, just the act of getting up, getting dressed, and preparing to leave the house. When you are 8 months pregnant with twins, again, my wife was 8 months pregnant with twins once. I know what I'm talking about. The act of getting out of bed and preparing to leave the house shows 10 times the tenacity and resiliency that this piece of garbage will ever show for anything, right? I mean, it's incredible how you could sit there and say, you give up so easily.
I know,
she's 8 months pregnant with twins. She's going to get your growth. She's going out to run errands at 8 months pregnant. When my wife was 8 months pregnant, it was a struggle waking up. I mean, that is brutal. That is absolutely brutal. I remember she would sleep 10, 12 hours a day. She'd have to. She'd have no choice. I mean, it's incredibly straining. And she's 8 months pregnant with twins. She's getting up. She's got her stuff together. She's got the keys. She's ready to go food shopping. And he says, you give up so easily? What a sick man. Jesus Christ, man. And this is what I mean.
And again, why doesn't he have a personal assistant to do those things?
Right.
To
Why
take
don't you have
that burden off his wife?
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, the money he has, he could hire 10 of them.
Right. It's incredible. It's absolutely amazing. And like I said, it's been pointed out that there are a couple cuts in the video. You could see in the bottom right corner, there's a time code, right? There's a timestamp. And there are 2 points where that timestamp skips ahead by a few seconds. So it's possible because she sent this video out. So it's possible that there could be something in there that makes her look bad. It's possible that they could just say the name of their kids that they don't want public, or they could say something that they just don't want people to see, right? I'm not saying it has to reflect poorly on her, but whatever was omitted from the video, there is no context in which this is okay. There's no context in which berating your pregnant wife to then walk the dog as he does here. So here, this is where it gets even better.
Respect, he said, then we're at an impasse.
Stephen, no, we are at an impasse, okay? I love you, but Stephen, your beast is sick. Your beast
Watch it.
is sick.
Watch it.
See, watch it. That's a threat there. Watch it. Watch it.
Right. What kind of a way is that to talk to her?
Yeah. And it suggests that she knows what the consequence might be.
Yeah, look,
if she doesn't
the whole way that he's speaking, whatever she might have cut out, the whole way that he's speaking, that's there's only so out of context that could be, because you have to be a certain kind of person to even think like this.
You have to be a certain kind of person to be sitting on your ass smoking a cigar while your wife is 8 months pregnant. Anyway,
right. I mean, that speaks for itself.
Right.
But then, like, this logic that's very controlling, narcissistic kind of logic. Oh, you give up too easily. Oh, no, you're not going to leave me here. Again, we're not talking about two people living in a trailer with one car. We're talking about a guy who can very easily go wherever the fuck he wants, whether she takes those keys or not.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Fucking watch it.
I'm gonna let go. I'll get what you need me to get. And I need some space. We need to just stop engaging for a little bit. Okay? I love you. I love you very much.
I don't love you. That's the big problem. I've never received love from you. And the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, you just be disciplined about it. You go, no. But I love you more than life itself. Okay. Put on some gloves. No. But I love you more than life itself. That's not fair. That's not fair, and it's disingenuous. Hillary, you're right. We're at an impasse.
Yeah,
Become someone, let's see me, day in and day out, worthy of a wife. No, not as a wife.
See, there was an edit there.
Hillary, come on now.
I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to engage anymore. I'm going to go. Text me what you need. I'll get you what you need.
See, she tries to de-escalate. You know, she handles it very well. She doesn't feed into it.
To you.
Put on some gloves. Are you committed to do those things?
I'm not going to.
Okay, so he's asking her to walk the dog and put on some gloves, because apparently the dog there, the white dog.
Clean? What is he talking about?
Does he want her to pick up dog shit, or according to the story, the dog requires some medication that she fears is toxic to, her unborn babies, and so he says, put on some gloves to handle the medication. Now, again, what context would make that okay? And under what circumstances would you tell your 8-month pregnant wife to walk the dog? Just walk the dog. Let's take the let's take the medicine out of it, right? Or whatever she needs the gloves for out of it. Just ordering your 8-month pregnant with twins wife to walk the dog, when once again you're sitting on your ass smoking a cigar, when the dog is sitting right there. Grab the leash, take the cigar, walk the dog yourself. Like, there's absolutely no universe in which it is not completely just pathological, diabolical to tell your wife, walk the dog. Then if she's concerned that there's a substance that's going to hurt the baby, you say, well, put on some gloves. Walk the dog, put on some gloves. You're sitting there doing nothing. You're sitting there doing nothing. It's amazing. It's just amazing that it's amazing that a person could be so narcissistic as to not register the just how horrible they're being in that moment. Like, how do you not take a step back and say, wait a minute, what's going on here? I'm sitting down smoking a cigar and I'm ordering my 8-month pregnant wife to walk the dog and pick up either dog shit or feed the dog medicine with gloves to keep the toxic stuff off of her hands. It's just incredible what a nightmare of a person you have to be.
Well, yeah. I mean, sure, whatever she cut, there's nothing that would justify this behavior. So, you know, I mean, it's interesting to speculate what this will do to his career in that space. It's hard to say. I don't, you know, I try to consume a fair amount of the media on that side because, one, you kind of have to because of the way the media is siloed. They'll cover things that you won't see on the left. But also to get a sense of what they're talking about, what they're thinking, where they're coming from. And, you know, look, this is not going to play well in that circle. How much of a consequence it has for him in terms of his followers and patrons, I would think it would be pretty damning for him. Like, there's no really good way to spin this.
He got some negative feedback in his comments. And yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, for guys like this and shows like this, there are kind of two audiences for it. There's the one audience who are sincere, like family values, Christian right people. And then there is like the incel terrorist
I think he
audience.
Loses those people.
Right, but then there's like the repressed incel terrorist audience who will take his side. I watched this one channel. I forgot what it was, man. It was just, I mean, it was really sick that like they took his side and they were talking about this.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's just, man, the audience for
All
that.
right, so he'll get the Andrew Tate audience.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. But, you know, that online, that's a sizable audience. Here, let's just let this finish. It's almost done.
You just said I love you. I'm committed to it. Walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things?
See, just berating her. Are you committed enough to do those things?
Are you committed enough to do those things?
And now she grabs the leash and she's going to walk the dog. Is she not?
Walk the dogs, put on some gloves.
No, she decides not to.
Enough to get the medication the dogs.
She was about to do it. Now this says that he gets angry and angry and screams, "I'll fuck you up." You know, there's no video to confirm that, so we don't have to speculate about that. But yeah, just incredible that you would keep her just to put your wife through the stress of that when she's 8 months pregnant, forgetting the physical task of doing anything, just to be that much of an asshole to a person who's pregnant like that, just what the stress can do to them in that state is just unthinkable.
Well, yeah. I mean, you watch just what's going on between them there. You know, it's like it's almost a cliche of an abusive relationship, like his whole behavior towards her, making her unsure of herself, putting everything on her. It's just, he's obviously a pretty sick dude. But you're right. Yeah, he'll get the Andrew Tate people if he decides to pivot that way. You know, a little bit in the chat, people talking about, you know, Candace Owens. You got some people who actually like Crowder. Audience. I'm very proud. I'm very proud we have a viewpoint diverse audience. I think there are sincere people in that space. You know, like Matt Walsh. I'd be very surprised if a video like this came out about him. That doesn't mean I agree with what he believes, but I believe he believes it. I believe that guy sees himself as a Christian values family man, and whatever that means, that I think that's how he conducts himself. Candace Owens. Some people are talking about Candace Owens. You know, there's a really interesting movie on Amazon Prime, and actually now they just released a sequel to it called Uncle Tom. That's all about Black conservatives. And, you know, Candace Owens, like a lot of particularly females on the right, started out a leftist and was disenchanted by the movement. And actually you hear this from a lot of Black conservatives as well. I'm not familiar enough with all the positions that she takes to really comment on them. I do get the impression from actually watching that documentary, she has a pretty plausible origin story. I don't feel like she's on the grift. That doesn't mean you have to agree with what she has to say. You know, one thing I saw her talking about the other day that I'd have to look into it more, what they mean. But I think as liberals, as people on the left, automatically when we hear things like school choice, It's just coded right wing to us. Like, we just don't even think about that. But okay, we were always against that because the argument was it's going to drain money out of school districts and that kind of thing. But that assumes a functional government, that argument. Now, if you're going to make the argument the parents should be able to put their kids in any school district they want, doesn't it? So that means that a kid in a poor neighborhood is no longer subject to that budget for the school in that neighborhood. They would be able to go to the rich district and go to their school. If that's the case, it seems like a position that we should be supporting, isn't it? Like, that seems like a left position to me. I mean, unless there's something I'm missing about school choice. You might know better than I do, Keaton. You have kids. But it seemed like that's what they were saying, basically, that parents should be able to send their kids to any district. If you did that, you see how fast you would get proper funding for inner city schools if you actually just allowed parents to send their kids wherever they want.
Yeah, I mean, it gets a little complicated. So, like, in the school district I grew up in, it's a magnet program where I don't know if there's school choice or if it's a lottery system or things like that, but we had busing all over the place. And the idea was just that. The idea was, if you go to a neighborhood school program where people don't have choice, they just have to go to wherever is closest to them.
Right.
That, you know, the wealthier, whiter kids would all go to the wealthier, whiter schools, and they would retain the good teachers, and they would have the smaller class sizes and things like that. And then the inner city schools, you know, would just get worse and worse. That's sort of the idea. We didn't have that. We had a magnet program. Now, I don't really know the extent to which the schools were equal or unequal in terms of teachers and class size and things like that. I was just too young to know. And so I'd have to look into it more. Because I know my dad is probably in the chat right now. He was very active in school politics, when I was a kid. As is probably not a surprise to many people.
Yes.
But yeah, I would have to look into it more because I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure how the magnet program
I can't speak
the suburban schools
on
versus
this,
the urban schools. Yeah.
But I would say this is something like we've never really gotten into it on the show, and maybe eventually we will, and if an appropriate segment comes up. So, you know, I grew up on welfare, and I had a lot of the afflictions that people who grow up on welfare do. It was very hard for me to figure out how to support myself because I'd never seen anybody go to work. I'd never seen anybody have a job. I didn't understand how to do taxes. Lot, you know, like, there are a lot of things that you get from that. So when I hear Black conservatives talking about how welfare has destroyed their community, I'm sympathetic to it because I get it. Yes, I had the problems that they're describing because I grew up on welfare. You could argue, and look, I mean, I'm pretty happy with how I live, but the reason I've never had a normal job is because I grew up that way, man. I wouldn't even know how. Like, the idea of having that kind of regimentation, I wasn't raised that way. I never saw it. It was very difficult for me as a young man when I first got out of college. I couldn't, you know, you say, oh, but you went to college. Well, yeah, man, I always read. I was smart. I tested well, and I was able to go and do that. But I still didn't know how to work a job.
Right.
When I got out of school, man, I was a guy with a college degree who could not discipline myself properly until, you know, eventually I found freak jobs. I developed the skill of finding jobs that played to my strengths, where I wouldn't have to work too many hours and I'd get paid decently enough. But I was never able to work a normal job, and part of that is because I grew up on welfare. So when I hear Black conservatives talking that way about the Great Society programs, I sympathize with what they're saying in a way that I think a lot of liberals don't, or people on the left don't, because they don't have that personal experience as a rule. I do. So to, you know, dismiss all these people as evil, or, you know, I don't see it that way. Like I said, I'm not familiar with everything that she believes. But, you know, as a category, people like Thomas Sowell do not offend me. I understand where they're coming from.
Oh, sure, absolutely. And as far as Crowder goes, like I even said on the last show, I said it's not just that I don't agree with what he says, it's that I don't think he's a good guy. That was even before this, right? He does not strike me as a good person. But even so, I wasn't gonna go here if his story was what it was, then I would have seen no reason to do this. And the only reason I felt the need to do this now is because as a twin dad myself, that triggered me at a few points. But also, the main point that I want to sort of finish this segment on is the fact that you saw there a guy who was very uncomfortable and unwilling to sacrifice anything, right? I mean, you're sitting out on the porch having a cigar. And
he's living the life.
Right. And he seems just put upon and very put off by the idea that he's going to have to give some of that up because he has a family now. Because
that's not what it's about. That's not what it's about. It's about control. Because if it were just about having his freedom, the guy has all the money in the world to buy space from responsibility. Everything that has to be done, he has more than enough money to pay for it. That's about control. That's a sick, narcissistic person who likes having that kind of control over that woman. It's not about feeling put upon by her being pregnant because he has enough money to buy his way out of that situation.
No, certainly, yes, and to a large extent, what you said is obviously certainly right. But I think, you know, when that day is coming, when your life is about to change in that way, yes, you have a lot of money you can throw at that, right? You can hire a night nanny to feed the kid formula, breast milk while you sleep, so you can sleep through the night, so that you're not up all night with the baby, right? Or in this case, babies, right? You know, so yes, there's some of that, but there's also there is an element of if your wife needs you, she's going to need you to be there for her as a spouse, which, and in that sense, you can't just hire someone and put the thing on them, right? Because there's that element of bonding where she has to feel like you're there for her, like you're sacrificing something for her because she is making a big sacrifice because the babies are in her, right? And so you have to match that with a sacrifice of your own if you want the marriage to remain intact. And so, yes, there are lots of things you can throw money at, but there's certain things you can't, right? That bond that you're trying to keep intact through this very, very tumultuous time, ultimately a very rewarding time, hopefully. But that's something that you have to keep intact through work and through effort and through a degree of sacrifice, which he's not willing to put in there. So it is, I think, a combination of those two things. And, you know, as someone who's very much on the left, who does not lecture people on how they should live their lives, I'm a very family values guy. I live a very family values life. I don't lecture people about it the way that a lot of the right-wingers do because, as Russell was talking about earlier, I don't have those same insecurities that they have about themselves, right? I just kind of am who I am, and everybody who can be who they want to be, and, you know, that's fine. But as someone who does care about family, who does value family, family is about, yes, there is effort and sacrifice that is required. And so when these right-wingers come on the air and they lecture you about the importance of family, the importance of a mother and a father, they are looking at it as they want to build their kingdom that they preside over. And part of it is, yes, that control, right? You had a guy saying on the show, I forget what it was called, the pro Crowder stream. It was like, well, he's the man in the house. He makes the rules. He is the breadwinner. He makes the rules. So if he only wants one car for the family, then that's it. There's only one car. We don't have the right to ask him why he only has one car. He's the man. He makes the money. He decides who has the car and who doesn't. Like, that's how a lot of people fucking think. And so when they start preaching family values, they're coming at it from that point of view, many of them. Not all of them. Like I said, you know, I mean, you got your right-wingers who walk the walk and, you know, have 7 kids and they're married to the same woman for 50 years and, you know, you know, Sarah, as they say, right? God bless. But then you have these people too. You have these people too, who are clearly just full of shit, or coming at it from a completely distorted perspective of what it means to be a husband and a dad.
Yeah, and you've always had a lot of people like this hide out in those conservative movements.
Right.
It's the perfect disguise.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, here's Mansa. You're trying to force everyone to have the values you have as well. You just do it in a different way. Well, I mean, I do try to impose. Yes, I mean, I would recommend everybody adopt the value of not berating your pregnant wife to pick up dog shit. Like I'd say that's pretty universal. Like I would say
fascist.
I would say if your wife is 8 months pregnant and you're sitting on your ass having a cigar and your dog needs to take a walk, you should walk the dog. Yes, that advice applies across the board. I will say that. Again, I'm not imposing that on you. But yes, I strongly recommend that. Absolutely.
Well, it's because you're a Nazi.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. What can you say?
Speaking totalitarian punk.
Totalitarian punk. Yes, indeed. All right. Speaking of Nazis, should we go to our Ron DeSantis, the torturer segment?
Sure.
All right.
You don't want to clear out some super chats?
Oh, do we have super? Oh, did you star in
I
it?
mean, I don't know. I don't do that while we're doing the thing.
Oh yeah, okay. We did get a couple, right? We got a couple. They took it down because of the last sentence truth. You're talking about the two guys there, Harry and Chris. Took it down because of the last sentence. Yeah, where they said that they didn't work with the DNC. Yeah, I think that's why they did. Keaton, she probably was love bombed in the beginning. Yeah, well, they were together for a long time, I think, before he really got famous. So, she's not just like a star fucker, But yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Supposedly it wasn't famous when she married him.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, she married him like 2011, 2012, something like that. He supported her sex addiction and raising his twins. Interesting. That was the other thing I wanted to just point out as a father of twins when it comes to, sacrifice and things like that. A lot of people say having twins is double the work. No, it's actually 4 to 10 times the amount of work, right? It's not just double because there's 2 babies. Like, so for one example of that, right? If you're trying to put the kid to sleep at the end of the day, right? I mean, my wife nursed our kids for a while. So she would nurse one to sleep. And if you only have one kid, you spend about 15 minutes nursing one of them. They doze off. You put them in their crib. And that's it. Done. 15 minutes. Now you have the rest of the night or until the kid wakes up. When you have 2, you nurse one. They go down. You go to nurse the other one. You're nursing the other one right next to the one who's already out. That one unlatches, screams, cries, panics because it unlatches, wakes up the other one. So now you have 2 screaming kids, right? Now you're up for 5 more hours with no sleep. So that's not twice the work. That's probably 10 or 15 times the work on that night, right? So anyway, yes, but that is all part of it. And I saw all of those elements sort of play out in that video there. All right, let's go to DeSantis, the torturer. We had, we got all through all those. Perfect. Excellent. All right.
And after we get through this, I'm going to take a follow-up vote because some have pointed this out. We were a much smaller channel the last time we took a vote on fixing these shelves. So we'll take another vote because a lot of people seem really concerned that I'm going to be killed by these shelves.
Yeah, people are taking an interest in that this evening.
All right.
Before we do our last segment, real quick, let's go to our caller here. Win a 2 Livre. Thanks for calling in. I know you didn't get to we took too long for you last time, so sorry about that.
No. Can you hear me?
Of course.
Okay, I don't know. I don't see any. Anyway, about this episode of The Honeymooners you just ran. I wouldn't read too much into the edit because I don't think there's anything that she could have said or done that would mitigate what we saw in that.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. The only reason I mentioned the edit is because some people have. And so I want to acknowledge it so people don't think we're hiding it because we're afraid that the edit is going to weaken our argument, right? That's the only reason why I said.
Want the Andrew Tate fans to, swarm you.
Right, in case they swarm us. I mean, I don't think we're on their radar. I think we're a little too soy for them.
Yeah.
A couple of theater guys, a couple of New York theater Jews running a left-wing talk show. theater kids, right? Exactly. But yeah, no, I did want to. I just wanted to do that just to sort of foolproof the argument. Like, yeah, look, there's a possibility she edited something out that made her look a little bit lousy. This isn't about who she is as a person. I don't know who she is as a person. I know she fell in love with this guy. She can't be that great a person in my mind.
Well, no, I'm not rushing to her defense or anything like that. I'm just, just trying to even up the network. Anyway, yes, go ahead.
You hang around the chat. Look, we have a very viewpoint diverse bunch of people. It was actually kind of interesting to me. I was a little surprised we have Crowder fans here.
I figured we might.
Yeah, it was a little.
Well, they see the title, they think, it's going to be a free for all. And
I think a lot of times when you have a heterodox show like we do, people just they're so used to, I think, the way cable has lined them up to expect if A then B and if B then C, that they think because you said this about this that you believe this about that.
Yeah,
and there's no reason to think that, but people do.
Okay, before I let you go, gentlemen, two things. One, keep the sagging bookcase.
Okay,
Two,
we have a vote for the sagging bookcase.
All right, you know what? I'm gonna keep a little check mark. The voting is not officially open yet. We'll do that after the DeSantis segment, but I will register your displeasure.
No, it's not displeasure.
Your pleasure.
Pleasure. You have no idea. There's a real scale of human energy to that image.
Last time we did a vote, the majority wanted it to stay.
Right.
Okay. Well, good for them. That's what I'm. Anyway,
we'll do a follow-up.
Number 2, please bring back the DueDissidence Film Club.
I could see you might be a fan of that. Yeah, we would. All right.
Why is that so outrageous, gentlemen? I ask you.
No, you know why I think we stopped doing it? Because we're breaking our asses here, man. Like it's a lot of prep to do that.
Yeah, it is a lot of prep.
It's like once we didn't do it one week, we just never did it again.
Yeah, and April just really snuck up on the both of us because between Russell's work and my move, it was just like, I understand. To put an extra one in. So we might do a season 2. We might do that show in streaks where we'll have 10 weeks on, 5 weeks off, 10 weeks on,
So not the best way to build an audience, but I understand.
Yeah. Well, we would like to probably try and do some more just film-related content on the main show. But, we would love to bring that back. And, thank you for voicing that you like it. It's nice to hear that, it's nice to hear that people enjoy it.
Asked us to bring it back.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, Russell.
Eventually. We will ride again. We will ride again.
Indeed.
Good way to put it. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for calling. We appreciate it, sir. All righty. Bye-bye. All right. Some love for the film club. Who knew?
All right.
Who knew? Good to know.
All right. So let's go simp for DeSantis now.
Yeah, let's go. So, well, no, we're not going to be simping for DeSantis this evening. All right. Here we go. Final segment of the evening here. Ron DeSantis spoke at the Museum of Tolerance in Jerusalem last week, and a reporter asked him about claims by a former Guantanamo Bay detainee that DeSantis had attended his force-feeding session. Now, DeSantis, who served as a legal advisor at Guantanamo in 2006, made some news with his response. He did not appreciate being asked about this, but, you're overseas, the foreign press, they're a little ballsier than the White House Correspondents' Dinner people are here, and so you might get a tough question.
They still have an independent press.
Exactly. So here's his response.
No, none of all that's BS. No, totally BS. Yep.
Say you were president.
Yep.
Is that
Who said that?
detainees.
How would they know me? Okay, think about that. Do you honestly believe that's credible? So this is 2006. I'm a junior officer. Do you honestly think that they would have remembered me from Adam? Of course not. They're just trying to get into the news because they know people like you will consume it because it fits your preordained narrative that you're trying to spin. Focus on the facts and stop worrying about narrative. Yes, sir.
I mean, he's a pro, but the premise of what he's saying is not really make sense. Like, if you tortured a motherfucker, he'd probably remember you. Like, that's the kind of thing you kind of
when you're sitting strapped to a chair in a diaper with them pouring Ensure down your fucking throat.
Right.
Yeah, you're gonna remember the guy who was laughing behind the chain link fence if his story is accurate.
Right.
One thing I will point out here, though, two things I'll point out actually about the media coverage on this. First of all, the only part of this story they really covered was that, and they covered it very briefly because they couldn't really cover it without talking about what he was responding to, which implicates the military-industrial complex and their friends in the deep state. So they didn't really want to dwell on this story. This, they tried to spin it as DeSantis loses it with reporter in Israel. He didn't lose it. He was very in control. No Republican ever paid a price for going off on the press. That's a very old one in the Republican playbook. He did like the idea that, oh, he lost it. He didn't lose it. He was very in command of himself. But the other point I will make, building on that, when you look at DeSantis stories in the news, it's all about Disney. It's all culture war. It's all fighting about Disney. This shit, they're not touching. They're not touching because of who it implicates. Their buddy, George Bush. George Bush is their friend. He's Michelle's partner in crime. They don't want to talk about this. Yeah, and really, it's the most effective line of attack against DeSantis that they have if they want to undermine him with Republican voters, but not the torture part, but the military-industrial complex part, the being a goon for the deep state part. That's much more effective than attacking him for going after Disney, which if you don't understand that the Republican base likes that, you don't understand the Republican base at all.
Right. Well, no, absolutely. Here's an article in Al Jazeera that details some of these sort of claims that he was answering to there. So, Russell, do you want to?
Okay, yeah. So DeSantis was a JAG, and he was sent to interview these detainees, and they thought that he was sent to interview them about their treatment and their conditions and to litigate their guilt or innocence. Basically, they thought he was an advocate for them. So his contention, do you really think a junior JAG would be remembered? Sure. If this is the guy that you thought was going to help you out and then you saw him laughing behind a chain link fence later, sure, you'd remember him. Sure, you would. So, and this is another point. If you go to look up stories about this, it's very hard to find it in the mainstream press. This is why we're on an Al Jazeera article here. I was informed that the U.S. government was determined to break the hunger strike. The doctor in charge, a colonel, told me he did not care if I said I was innocent or protesting mistreatment. He was there for one thing, to make me eat. There was a mass hunger strike on Guantanamo. I refused and was immediately and violently strapped into the chair so tightly that I could not move. A nurse forced a thick tube into my nose and down my throat. My nose bled and the pain was so great that I thought my head would explode. The nurse would not stop. Instead, he began pouring Ensure into a feeder bag attached to the tube. They poured can after can in the feeder bag until my stomach and throat were so full that Ensure poured back out of my mouth and nose. I thought I was going to drown. If you throw up, a corpsman said, we'll start from the beginning with a new case and fill you up again. As I tried to break free, I noticed DeSantis's handsome face among the crowd at the other side of the chain link. He was watching me struggle. He was smiling and laughing with other officers as I screamed in pain. I threw up in their direction. They jumped back disgusted. I did not care. I was the only one there who had the right to be disgusted. All right. So this seems like a plausible story to me. It seems rather far-fetched that somebody who was held in Guantanamo would just single out Ron DeSantis for no reason. And we also, right from his own words, have reason to believe that this story is plausible. So we have some video of DeSantis. What was this, 3 years ago?
This was actually in 2018. This was an interview with CBS South Florida where he's asked about his role in Guantanamo Bay, and he actually brings up the issue of hunger strikes and how he recommended they might deal with them.
Experience there, and what exactly did you do while you were there?
Well, also, I'm a blue-collar kid, which a lot of people running for this office are millionaires, have inherited an awful lot of money.
This was during the
I didn't
campaign
get squat.
season.
I started off making $6 an hour. I was able, through baseball, to play at Yale and go to Harvard Law School. Then I decided to commission as a JAG officer in the U.S. Navy. I volunteered to serve in Gitmo. I was sent down there on temporary assignments, working for the Joint Task Force Guantanamo, which was in charge of dealing with these terrorists that were there.
So were you interviewing terrorists? Were you a legal advisor?
I was a legal advisor.
For those that were doing...
So things that would happen is, the thing you notice the day you get down there is, for these detainees, the jihad was still ongoing. Right. And they would wage jihad any way they can. Now, they're in a facility, so it's limited, but some of the things they would do hunger strikes, and you actually had 3 detainees that committed suicide with hunger strikes. So everything at that time was legal in nature one way or another. So the commander wants to know, well, how do I combat this? So one of the jobs of the legal advisor would be like, hey, you actually can force feed. Here's what you can do. Here's kind of the rules of that. You also had a lot of detainees claiming abuse, because this was in the wake of Abu Ghraib, and that was used offensively against our guards. So our guards would have feces thrown at them, all this other stuff, and yet they would be charged with detainee abuse, so we had to evaluate all that. So what I learned from that, and I took to Iraq when I was working with SEAL Team 1, is they are using things like detainee abuse offensively against us. It was a tactic, technique, and procedure.
He's a sick guy, that guy, that Ron DeSantis. He's sick. He's sick in the head, that guy.
It sounds like he enjoyed it. He enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Well, so look, you put that interview together with this guy's story, and this is what happened. Ron DeSantis went and interviewed these guys and gave them the impression that he was going to advocate for them, and really, he was there to help out the administration and advise them on how to break this hunger strike and what they could do legally, what they could legally get away with. I want to read one more paragraph from this. You don't have to cue it up. I have it on my screen.
Okay.
At the time of DeSantis's speech, this is he's talking about a speech he gave in 2006. At the time, 80 prisoners remained at Guantanamo. I was one of them. Of the 779 men held at Guantanamo since it opened in 2002, only 12 have been charged with crimes. Only 2 have been convicted. So this really puts the lie to that interview. He's trying to make it sound like, well, Guantanamo was full of all these jihadists who were propagandizing their cause by pretending to be abused. Based on those numbers, the vast majority of these were innocent men trying to gain their freedom. Out of hundreds of detainees, you have two convictions. But the way he makes it sound, wow,
these were terrorists.
These were terrorists, right? Now, I'd like to tell you that Ron DeSantis is going to pay a political price for this, but he is not. He is not. I very much doubt he would pay a price for this running as a Democrat, frankly. This is the same party where they ring a cowbell in your face if you suggest George Bush should go to prison. So, and certainly the media, as I just said, has shown a distinct lack of curiosity in this, given that they're in full pile on DeSantis mode. They love DeSantis stories as long as they're culture war stories. They really don't like this story because of who it implicates.
Yeah,
so
and these accusations have been out there for a while. These are not new. But what made it blow up this week a little bit is that clip of him kind of snapping back at the reporter went a little viral because, he abused the press, right? So they cover it from that angle, that he yelled at a reporter. Not that he's a force-feeding, ass-to-mouth torturer.
Right. Yeah. So this isn't gonna change his political trajectory, but it is useful to get some insight into who this person is. And I think sometimes, because I've for a while now been saying that I think he's going to be the president, some people misinterpret that as being supportive of Ron DeSantis, and that's certainly not the case. Ron DeSantis is a little fucking goon. Who my argument very often with DeSantis is the left is empowering people like this by taking such deeply unpopular cultural positions. You're handing this guy a surfboard that he can ride right into the White House on the wave of cultural backlash. That is why I argue so strongly against so many of those cultural positions, not because I like Ron DeSantis, because I don't like Ron DeSantis, and you're making him stronger. You're making him powerful. And you're making him, I believe, the next president.
All righty. Well, I think that just about wraps us, does it not?
It does.
Indeed.
Except for bullshitting with our audience. So, all right. So, the shelves. Fix them or leave them alone. The polls are open.
Polls are open. Cast your vote, everybody.
I've got a pen here. I'm marking down the votes.
All right. Here we go. Yeah, A2M. Keaton is the family hour. Yeah, I said this was going to be a family show. But that last segment wasn't the most family of segments there. Yes, I admit that, Dr. Nick. Thank you for keeping me on my toes there. Appreciate that. All right, so we got 100% agree. All right, I don't know where the votes are coming in on the shelves or not the shelves. Maybe we'll have to go back and check the chat.
Okay. All right, so leave them. Hang on, I gotta go back now. All right.
Yeah. Okay. So there. Now we're getting a lot of votes in.
Okay. So leave them. Fix. Leave. Yeah. It always
riveting
comes in
content
like
here. Yeah.
Fix, leave. Yeah, come on. The leaves have it.
The leaves have it. Our dissident decision desk is calling it for the leaves. The leaves have it. With 30% of precincts reporting, we can project that the leaves have won. Alrighty, folks. Well, I believe that is our show for the evening. We will be back on Thursday on this channel, but we will be on RBN tomorrow at 8 p.m. With Kit from Hardlands Media. Nick and CJ over at RBN are hosting us. We're going to have a little post-duopoly left roundtable, as it's being called. So head on over and subscribe to RBN if you're not already, so that you get notified about that. But we are on tomorrow at 8 p.m. Please, folks, hit that like button on your way out to help more people find this stream so they can watch it after it wraps. And hit that subscribe button if you have not already. We hope that you enjoyed the program. If this is one of your first times here, please hit that subscribe button to stay in touch. You can also go to patreon.com/DueDissidence or DueDissidence.substack.com. That's going in the chat right now. We had a few free subscribers sign up last time after the show because I put that link there. So I believe that that's a good thing to do. You can sign up at Substack as a paid member. It really helps us out. Or you can sign up for free. Signing up for free gets you notified when we're going to go live. We drop the occasional piece of written content and extra video content as well. Podcasts, audio podcasts are available through Substack as well. We lost Jose.
We lost Jose. God damn it.
Oh, man. All right. Well, Jose's a pretty good super chatter, so maybe
honestly, Jose, I wanted to fix them, but every time we vote, man, everyone wants them to stay.
Oh, by the way, Dwayne Vogel, he says, Keaton or Russell, you rule. Well, thank you, Dwayne. And I believe I put you on the scroll, right? On the Patron scroll. You're on there. Did I? Yes, Dwayne V. There you are. Wanted to make sure I got you because thank you, Dwayne. You signed up over at Substack last week, so thank you so much for that. Alrighty, everybody. Yes, Substack is a website. Yes, long story short. Yes, Substack is a newsletter/email list website where we can publish videos, audio podcasts, and written articles. So it's a great tool. So I encourage you to go DueDissidence.substack.com and
That's
just
a place
sign up
we
for
can
free.
actually speak freely.
Exactly. It's a free speech forum as well. So we love it for that. Alrighty, everybody. Thank you very much. We appreciate you guys. We will see you back here on Thursday on this channel. Tomorrow, Revolutionary Blackout Network, 8 p.m. Eastern. Be there. That's going to be a lot of fun. You don't want to miss that. We will see you all then. Until then, be safe. Be well. Thanks very much once again.
Courage!
Please clap.